All the Right Movies.
Waking up in hospital, bike messenger Jim enters the eerily empty streets of London. Finding the only humans alive, Jim and his crew find out that nowhere is safe as they make their way through the rage-infected streets in search of safety. Danny Boyle's aggressively lo-fi entry into the zombie genre is as impactful as it was 21 years ago. Uncompromising and intentionally shot through low-grade equipment, 28 Days Later kickstarted a pop culture craze that is still felt today. My name is Luke, and with me are Matt.
Okay, Jim, I've got some bad news.
And Westy.
A man walks into a bar with a draft. They get pissed. The draft falls over. The man goes to leave and the barman says, "Oi, you can't leave that lying there." He says, "Nah, it's not lying. It's a draft."
There's no government, no army, no police, no TV, no radio, no electricity, but there'll always be ATRM. Hello and welcome to All the Right Movies, a mutated virus of a podcast on classic and hit films, full of rage. Well, Westy is.
Yeah, full of monkeys.
Always.
We're on home shores this week as we talk about a modern horror movie classic. It's 28 Days Later. A big one.
Yes,
It is.
Before we infect our audience with a hell of a show,
Brilliant.
we're going to tell you about the exclusive benefits you can get your hands on by signing up to become an All the Right Movies Patreon supporter. You've heard it before, I'm sure, but no doubt you'll want to hear it again.
Yeah.
Of course.
Don't skip it.
It's the best bit for me.
Yeah.
Just this bit on repeat.
It's this bit, yeah, it's great.
What you're listening to now is our classic podcast. Only the most recent 20 episodes are available on general release. The rest are tucked away in our archive exclusively for our patrons. That's over 60 episodes on classic and hit films, and there are over 50 shows that we've created only for our Patreon supporters. On top of all of that, we create a brand new episode of our double feature show every month, only for our patrons.
Yep.
Now, I don't know if you've been adding all of that up, but there are over 110 podcasts available, and that's a figure that grows every single month.
Yep. Lots of bang for your buck.
Loads.
Just why you need post-apocalyptic virus outbreak. What else are you going to do? Just listen to us?
Absolutely. If you need to hide in a bunker,
Yeah. Take us
you
with
need
you.
us in your ears.
Of course you do. Yeah.
Our following is spreading on a daily basis, so join us before the infected gets you. Sign up at patreon.com/all the right movies. If you can support us, it really helps us continue to work on all ATRM fronts and bring you regular, unparalleled movie content. Thanks, everyone.
Yes, thank you guys. It'd be wonderful if you could have a look and check it out.
Yes, please do.
Very much. Okay, so back to the film. The matter at hand. Matt, this was your choice. Why do you want to talk about 28 Days Later?
I feel we've underrepresented Danny Boyle a bit on the podcast. We've only done Train Spotting. That was a couple of years ago now. And I wouldn't say he's one of my absolute favourites. I think he's pretty inconsistent for the most part, which drags him down a bit. But at the same time, there is more to him than Train Spotting. And I think this is just the logical next step to talk about from him. You know, this is before Shaun of the Dead. This is before The Walking Dead was on TV. And yes, we know they're technically not zombies, but for all intents and purposes,
Yes, they are.
they are. Just admit it, everyone. They are zombies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this was before the resurgence, and this is the film that felt like it did reignite that genre. I think zombie films had completely fallen out of favour before this.
Yeah.
If you made one, it would be direct-to-video probably. But then you had this, even though it's very lo-fi, it still has real cinematic scope, but it has this real intensity to it. And it's very, very Danny Boyle.
It is very Danny Boyle. And I'm a horror movie fan. Some people may know that, so this is catnip for me. It is such a unique film for many reasons, but I still don't feel that 28 Days Later gets the credit it deserves for rejuvenating and bringing a fresh narrative to the dormant zombie subgenre.
Yeah.
It really highlights Danny Boyle's ability to work in any genre and make something that stands head and shoulders above most in that field. I mean, running zombies, that's got to be a tick in anyone's box.
Absolutely.
Yep.
It's super low budget, empty streets of London, early performances from Naomi Harris and Cillian Murphy. Very significant. Loads of things to get into. I don't believe I've talked about this film with either of you guys before, so it'll be a hell of a ride, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what about you, Westy? 28 Days Later?
Fantastic stuff. Yeah, I mean, this was like, when I went to see it at the cinema, it was an instant cult classic. It was a cult classic as soon as it was released. You're watching it going, this is a cult film, automatically. And that's how it still feels to me. It's a very exciting film. I was studying film at the time when it came out, and it's a film student's dream, because you're like, wow, how did they just did this ad hoc with, DV cameras. Wow, anyone can do this.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Very exciting. And I think everyone who really loves the genre, or has really loved the genre, especially Romero's Day of the Dead, or Night of the Living Dead, or the Dead films, they're desperate for something like this to be released, to be made, to be thought through, to be appreciated. And it does. It ticks all the boxes, and it does pay homage to all of them films with aplomb, I think. It's a really great modern day update, and it's got this intimacy to it, which I really, really enjoy. And I think it was one of the first of the horror genre that I'd seen anyway. I mean, there's probably a few before this, and Luke, you'll know better than I will, but one where you really invest in the characters and you really care about these people.
Very much.
So yeah, I'm very excited to talk about it. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to see what you guys think of it. And yeah, there's a lot to get into, so let's go for it.
Let's do it. 28 Days Later was written by Alex Garland, produced by Andrew MacDonald, and directed by Danny Boyle for DNA Films and the UK Film Council. Filmed in various locations across England, it was distributed by Fox Searchlight Pictures and released on the 1st of November 2002 in the UK. Cillian Murphy stars as Jim, Naomi Harris as Selena, and Megan Burns as Hannah, with solid, familiar support coming in the shape of Christopher Eccleston and Brendan Gleeson.
Yep.
First up, we're headed to the empty streets of London. Repent. The end is extremely fucking nigh.
The beginning.
We're starting, as the film does, in a dark laboratory where we learn the origins of the rage virus. We follow this stretch, which ends with Jim deserted on the streets of London. And I'm starting the ball rolling here with his scene in the lab.
Nice.
It's such a jarring opening with these horrific newsreel images. And I mean, the way the film is shot, it looks like we're watching grainy news footage anyway.
Yeah.
And this plugs straight into what the chimp is made to watch here. This was really strange as well. When I came back to watch it, I thought it opened in London on the empty streets. I'd totally forgotten about this.
Everyone forgets about this sequence. Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah.
And it continues to keep you on edge with those electrodes or whatever they are, the chimp's head who's tied up in the bed. And I know that Boyle used some imagery from A Clockwork Orange for Trainspotting, and I feel like that's a similar thing here.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think there's just something primarily unsettling about chimps in this environment. I don't know if I'm alone in this.
Just chimps in general.
No, just in this environment, just caged up. Genetically, they're the closest thing to humans, so seeing them caged up just feels wrong.
It does,
I mean, obviously, any animal caged up just feels wrong, but there's just an added element with chimps for some reason.
Yeah.
But this scene just makes me itchy, and I think that's continued throughout the rest of the film. The way it's shot, it's really, really intimate.
Yeah.
Almost too intimate.
Well, the chimps you're talking about, there were only 2 troops of chimpanzees that could do the job required by Boyle for this one. And the one used on the bed for this scene, he's called Johnny, and he'd been hand raised by his trainer since birth. And the trainer was on hand for this scene just to make sure all the chimps were comfortable and well behaved.
That's them well behaved.
Yeah. Like when it's hammering on the glass at the end.
Jesus
Christ almighty.
Yeah. And they love it as well when the girl is attacked. But when they are let out, I mean, it really, really does shock. It's in the way that it's edited and shot in that disorientating close-up that is familiar throughout the film.
Yeah.
And I think this scene sets you up perfectly for the rest of the film. Fasten your seatbelts because it ain't holding back this film at all.
No, goes for your throat straight away.
Oh, it really does.
The great thing that highlights here is that the sound design remains consistent over fast cuts, because you've got the screams of the chimps, and that doesn't really cut. It's just consistently there, that sound. But you're like watching something different. And like you said, Matt, when he's pounding on that cut to nothing, that cut to black, it just holds it just long enough.
Yeah.
Genius, yeah.
Okay, well, what about you in this sequence, Westy? What are you going for?
I'm going to go for when Jim wakes up in the hospital to him just exploring London at first.
Amazing.
You know, that overhead shot of him just lying in the bed. There's a lot of questions. There's been a lot of people, piping up onto it. Could he walk? He's 28 days in a coma. You know, he's with his IV drip would have ran out. You know, you've got to kind of suspend disbelief a little bit here.
Of course you do, yeah.
Those are the only questions being asked on Twitter. Why isn't it? Why do we have to see Jim in the nude?
And as he just gets up from the bed, he's knocking things over, very disorientated. Again, we are just with him. It's almost like we're watching it as a documentary and we're following him around. And incredible how that is so eerie. That hospital is just empty. There's just nothing. And the way these shots are framed, there's some excellent composition, which I'll go into later on, which I think really makes this sequence. But it's just the eeriness of it. When he walks outside, it's just, you go to a nightclub and you just come back and it's light outside and you're walking home and you're like, oh, I know how that feels. Yeah. That's really weird.
yeah.
But again, I mean, it's just very reflective of the pandemic. And I think this film has become massively popular again since then because it kind of hits the nail right on the head. It predicted it, but it predicted it so well where you're watching it going, I completely understand this now. I know exactly how he feels. This is brilliant. Yeah. I think it's just fantastically done. And it's one that just sits in your mind so vividly that, like you said, there's that incredible opening sequence and it's really harrowing and it really punches you in the face, but you forget about it automatically because of this and the grandeur of this and the genius of how this is actually shot and put together. And I think Cillian Murphy needs a real big nod here because there's a lot of pressure on that guy. Hasn't really done much up to now. Mate, there's 10 cameras on you. You've got like 15 minutes and you've got to sell this. It could look cheesy. He's got to just, the only lines he's got is hello. And if he looks around and he looks cliched and starts overplaying it or underplaying it, it doesn't work. But I think he measures it perfectly.
Yeah, a real hospital was used for those opening scenes.
Yeah.
They shot it on weekends because the hospital was only open Monday to Friday. I just don't know what kind of hospital this is. Probably 9 to 5 working hours, Monday to Friday. I don't understand.
Famously, people don't get injured on Saturday night, do they?
Yeah.
And I think all the budget goes towards funding the hospital as well, though, which is really good. So it kind of helps.
Yes, right. Yeah, nice little touch.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
And it's an incredible feat that Boyle pulled off, managing to film in the deserted streets or seemingly deserted streets of London. Some of the most iconic imagery from movies of this century.
Impossible to do now. You need permits left, right and centre.
Oh, Christ.
Yeah.
So filming started around 4 a.m. with police cordons halting all of the traffic. It didn't stop them getting some foul-mouthed abuse from drunks trying to get home and drivers on the road. Anthony Dodd Mantle, who was the DP, said people were screaming serious dissent that I won't quote. But they did have very attractive young women who were kind of diverting the traffic. One of them was Danny Boyle's daughter, who was 19 at the time, just very politely saying, would you mind just going that way? Or would you mind just going that way?
How could you resist that?
Yeah. Incredibly, it worked. 4 a.m. London cab drivers. I mean, what does that say about them boys?
No problem, sweetheart.
Yeah. Absolutely, love. No bother.
Where are you going after this?
Disgusting.
Yeah, and I know the original plan was to have basic carnage depicted on the street. So there's going to be cars on fires, bodies just littering the place. But because they only had limited time to set up, Boyle devised this plan to have the streets deserted instead. And as Westy mentioned, it was a 10-camera setup. And he craftily edited all that footage together to create the illusion that the whole of London was deserted.
Yeah, I mean, because like outside of the frame there were crowds and people being held back, but you just cannot tell the way that this is put together.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And the great bit when he's crossing that bridge as well. I think that's probably one of the most iconic bits. I mean, the rule of thirds is just used to perfection here. When you see that lion on one side and you see him moving over. But all the rubbish that he walks over, I mean, there's a great story that Pat Karam, the location manager, told about the scene on Westminster Bridge. And the production designer, Mark Tidsley, covered the bridge in the rubbish from early hours of the morning, spent hours getting it all right. And just when they were ready to call action, the fella who worked for the council comes into shot with a trolley, shaking his head like, not again. Starts clearing.
Drunks.
Oh God, shaking his fist. Amazing. So he starts clearing all the rubbish up from the bridge, right? So Karam went running over to him explaining, look, we're filming and you can clean this up afterwards, we'll all help you. And the council guy's like, I don't believe you. And just get on with these jobs. So Karam said he thought he was going to have to throw him off the bridge to get the shot. He was that adamant. Amazing.
Brilliant.
Yeah, but did you know they also had a bit of strife with Westminster Council as well? Because they denied Boyle's request to put, that scene with the overturned bus.
Yeah.
They denied his request to put that outside Downing Street. They insisted, no, you've got to move it up the road instead. Right, okay, fine. But when they got there, because obviously they're filming at 4 a.m., there was no security. So they just did it anyway. Just put it down the street. I was going to say,
it is outside, isn't it?
Yeah, it is outside. Yeah, they just did it anyway.
Yeah, because they wanted to move it up the road. Yeah, amazing.
It's a great shot through the window when you see him coming.
Yeah.
And that broken glass.
Great.
It's fantastic, yeah.
It's just such an incredible opening because somewhere like London shouldn't be that quiet and empty. It just disorientates you straight away. And imagine if you're Jim, you've woken out of a coma into this. You must be thinking, am I dead? is this the afterlife? Have I actually woken
Brilliant.
up? It's so gripping. Like, I could watch a sequence if it was like 4 times as long. I just love it. There's something really hypnotic about it.
There really is.
And if you've got like that fear of open spaces, this must be hell, because Jim is just so vulnerable here and he doesn't even know it. But it's just packed full of great little details. Like, I love it when he picks the money up off the ground, because you would if you're in that situation, and he doesn't know that money is useless.
Yeah.
So as weird as the situation is, it's just not hitting home to him how bad the world is now. But it's the music that makes it for me, which is Godspeed You Black Emperor. It's so evocative and intense and scary, just the way it builds and builds and builds.
Yeah.
And then when you combine that with Jim just innocently like touching that car and the alarm just goes, bah!
Oh, it's awful, that. Every
Jesus
time.
Christ.
Too loud, that, Danny.
Oh, too loud. Like, what a jump scare that is. Like, because that's the first sound of human existence you've heard in this sequence. And it scares the absolute shit
out. And it's a warning.
And it's a warning. It shouldn't mean anything, but it's a warning. And then you get Jim looking at that newspaper headline, evacuation, and Boyle holds that just long enough so you can get like a little glimpse of the headline and the story. It's like Blair orders evacuation, camps being built, but then he switches and you don't get to read the whole thing, which I really like. So you're totally in Jim's headspace. And the kicker for me is when he finds that big wall of notes at Piccadilly Circus.
Harrowing.
It's harrowing because it's just full of those little details that I love in films like this, where you're trying to pick out what's being written, and just the desperation is so like palpable from these notes, and it's devastating stuff. And it's one of these inadvertent things that 28 days later taps into is 9/11, which happened right in the middle of filming.
It did, yeah.
Because in New York, you saw people putting those posters up. Have you seen this person?
Yeah.
And you know they're gone. Deep down, that person knows they're gone.
Of course, but it's just desperation, isn't it?
It's desperation. So to see that, it's so powerful. And then that music finally crescendos, and Jim is just left reeling by everything he's saying. It's so incredibly well done.
Yeah, I mean, those notes were created by one member of the crew over a 3-month period. Wow. I mean, psychologically, that must have been grim.
That's a bad headspace to be in, like,
isn't it just?
Christ,
I'd quite enjoy that job, to be fair.
I'll give it a Westy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good work if you can get it. Like doing John Doe's books in 7, I could have done that as well.
Writing the all work and no play for The Shining.
Yeah, I could do
in
that.
In Spanish.
Yeah, I could do that.
This sequence backs straight into our next sequence with Jim entering a church for solace and ends with him meeting Selena and Mark. And Westy, I believe you're going to kick us off with this sequence.
Yeah, why go to a church? It's scary already. That opening shot, that high shot when he comes through the door, just so reminds me of the Blues Brothers at the top of the stairs.
Get the penguin involved.
Yeah, get the penguin. That would have been meant if the penguin came out with a massive stick. I'm not infected, just furious. But yeah, I mean, it's just a great, great setting, isn't it? I mean, you're going to put it anywhere. You put it in a church, you're going to think that if anything's going to be all right, it's going to be all right in there.
Of
hopefully.
Course. Yeah.
That's kind of a place of solace. It's a place where nothing will go wrong, as we'll learn from Highlander. So it's always a place where you
Holy
can go.
ground, Highlander.
Exactly. Totally safe there. And it's that hello when he's standing there and he sees all of the bodies. And it's that hello. Yeah. And they look up.
And they jump up. That is horrific.
There's the noise behind the door and he keeps going towards it. And it's a classic horror trope. And I think it's done really well here because you want to know as well. You don't want to say run away because there's nothing to run to. There's nowhere to go.
No.
So he's going to have to investigate what's going on. And I don't think the guy, I mean, I should have found out who this was who played the priest, but he's fucking excellent.
Oh, he knocks it out of the park.
He's absolutely amazing. And think what's on his shoulders. This is the first look at the infected.
Yeah.
He's really got to sell this.
Yeah.
He's really got to show what the terror is and how it's going to be portrayed throughout the film. And he's got to do it all in a very short space of time. And I think he does when he's just flailing his arms. It's like he's being shot. And almost because of that he was a priest, I think it has that vibe to it where he's trying to push it down. He's trying to repel it. He's trying to move. He's trying to push himself away from Jim. It's got that kind of feel to it. And again, there's that little bit of Danny Boyle humor when he hits him with a bag. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done that.
You know,
Sorry, Father.
Sorry, Father. Just run out. It's just a wonderful, wonderful sequence the way it sets up.
Yeah, it's amazing.
In the church, though, all those bodies Jim sees, they aren't actually extras because they couldn't afford extras. It's a so low budget. So
all right.
Boyle had drafted in student volunteers who were paid with cups of tea instead.
Oh, amazing. Really British, that, isn't it?
That's really British. We'll give you tea.
Now they slept there the night before, surely.
Watching Countdown.
Yeah.
I really love that chase from the church.
Yeah.
Jim doesn't know what on earth is going on. And I suppose we don't really, up until this point, we don't have too much knowledge. But I know that a group of people that are running after you with blood coming out of their eyes, you're running as fast as you can away from them.
Of course. Anyway.
And that image of Jim in his hospital outfit with his carrier bag being chased by zombies on fire is amazing.
It is. Yeah.
What an enduring image.
The thing that strikes me, though, I think the still photographer got a better shot of that than Dodd Mantle and Boyle
right.
did. Because when you see it, it's like, whoa, that's an incredible shot.
Yeah,
wow, but you don't actually see that shot in the film.
Yeah, you're right. And that explosion is really impressive. Boom, it goes up. One of the best that I've seen on film, to be honest, for a low-budget film. It looks incredible.
It does, yeah.
It's like we said there about the explosion at the petrol station, but that was all planned out with the correct permits and all safety measures in check. But the police weren't notified of this, and they descended on the scene with the fire brigade, although there was already a fire brigade there. Yeah. So after a few hours of heavy explanations, Boyle managed to get rid of them. But I mean, I would love to have seen that. Boyle must be some boy to talk his way out of that. But
he must be like, God, the charm, hasn't he? Yeah. Why have you blown up a petrol station?
All he did was give them each a cup of tea and they fucked off. But the explosion itself cost was £250,000.
Wow.
Yeah. And then bear in mind the budget's $8 million.
Yeah.
So that's
I know, it's got to be the most expensive thing in the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But well worth it.
No wonder they edited it from like 8 different angles.
Loads of different shots.
Yeah.
And when they make it to the shop, Jim gets an explanation from Selena. Obviously, the film needs some exposition at this point. We need to know really what's going on.
Yeah.
But what I like is that what we find out from Selena and Mark is what they know, which isn't that much at all, really.
Not really.
Because they're going off what they've been told in the media before everything went dark. They know it's something in the blood, and that's all we need to know, really, to set us up for the film. Yeah. Enough to understand that blood in Frank's eyes is an absolute fucking disaster. But not enough to really grasp what is actually happening, which keeps us disorientated and constantly playing catch up. And I really like that choice in the writing. Little breadcrumbs, give you this, but not too much.
Because it's great that they don't have one of them say, and it came from these chimps in this lab.
Don't forget that scene that we showed you at the start.
Which was 10 minutes ago.
Just a picture of a chimp on the front of the Daily Mirror.
Yeah, it was him.
This is Johnny the bastard.
Have you seen this man? Johnny be good.
Have you seen this chimp?
10,000 Mars bar reward.
Snack size, obviously. It's a low budget.
Well, I think it's an appropriate point to introduce our first Patreon question. As this is the point in the film where we get to see the zombies in full flow.
Yes.
And that is another benefit of signing up to be an All the Right Movies Patreon supporter. You can ask us a question for the films that we talk about. We'll answer them live and direct. And our first of the show comes from Robin David Hercock. How are you doing, Robin?
Hello, Robin.
Hello, Robin.
Robin says, this movie popularized the whole running zombie thing, which featured in so many similar movies of the 2000s.
Yes.
Robin says he personally prefers the slow-moving dread of George A. Romero. Do you guys have a preference?
Right.
A very important detail in the film, zombies running 20 miles an hour is enough to scare anyone to death.
Yep.
Yes.
And like Robin said, 28 Days Later was certainly the film that popularized the running zombie, adding a powerful new element to the zombie lore, but it wasn't the first, kind of like Halloween. It wasn't the first slasher, but it's the one that popularized it.
Yeah.
Nightmare City, Umberto Lenzi's effort from 1980 depicted zombies who were fleet of foot, as did 1985's The Return of the Dead.
I was going to say, I thought it was Return that was the first one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, both are well worth checking out.
Yeah, Return's great.
Nightmare City, not to be sniffed at.
Okay.
I'll take your word for that.
Not going to happen.
I'm not going to watch that. Okay, well, for Robin's question, I'm not usually one to break away from any kind of tradition.
No.
I like to remain the status quo, but I do prefer the running zombies.
Okay.
And I think I've always had an issue with the lumbering undead in films that came beforehand. Because I just think if there's a reanimated corpse coming towards you at a snail's pace, move.
Yeah.
And that's the end of that little problem. Done.
Yeah.
I think what Boyle has done here for me is create something that is genuinely terrifying, whereas I don't feel like zombies in the genre beforehand were anything really to strike fear.
Right.
And I think the reason that the running zombies are so effective is that Boyle cast athletes as the zombies.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
With that kind of power. I mean, and captured on those cameras, it looks as though they're running at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
Oh, definitely.
So Those are the most effective for me.
Right.
What about you, Matt?
I think when the fast ones are used well, like they are here, they can be so effective. Like Zack Snyder took this for his remake of Dawn of the Dead, which is, it's decent. I enjoy that. But I think the best example after this one is Train to Busan, which is the Korean film where they're on the train.
Oh, yes.
That's intense. That is an intense watch. You wouldn't get that intensity if they were slow moving. But I think I am going to stick old school for this because I do find there's something... It just strikes a note of dread into me about how remorseless they are when they're slow, because they just will not stop and they will keep coming and coming and coming. And I think it's the fact that if a person did want to get you, they would run at you. But the fact that zombies don't, it kind of says there's something inhuman about that.
Okay.
And I don't think something like Night of the Living Dead would be the same if they were running and hurling themselves at that house. I think you can build tension with these slow ones. Maybe not just one or two, but en masse, like at the end of Night of the Living Dead, when they're just all pushing against that house. I find something really quite scary about that. So fast ones, I definitely like the fact they've been made mainstream and they have the place. But in general, I would go for the slow ones.
Oh, right in the middle, aren't we? Right, here we go. I think it depends on what mood I'm in for what film I want to watch, because I think it dictates what you're going to get from the film. I think if you've got a slow-moving zombie, they're more about the human relationships and human backstories and how they feel.
Yeah.
And if you've got fast-moving zombies, it's more of an action film, and you haven't got room for that emotion. I mean, they tried to put it in here, but it's not as obvious as it is. And like Matt said, like Night of the Living Dead, that's all about the characters and where they're going and where they've been and how they're going to deal with it. I mean, the zombies symbolize death itself. I think that was the whole point. No matter how slow it moves, it's going to catch up with you and it's going to get you eventually.
Yeah.
And I think that's more terrifying for me. And I am really partial to both. Like Matt said, I love Train to Busan, I love Wreck, I love Zombieland for the comedy element of it.
Wreck is unbelievable.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
Fantastic in the way they've done it. But you just see, it's what you don't see in that film. And I think because you don't see them as much, it does have an exploration of the characters and you do get that emotional element of it. But they tend to put lots of them in there when they're fast. And I would kind of like a little bit of a middle ground if I could kind of break it. But I will go slow because that's what I originally saw. And I think if something's just slowly moving towards you and it's not going to stop, that's fucking terrifying. I would rather something just ran at us and ripped my face off and it was just done with than just lumbering after us and I'm just like, just leave us alone. But I am very, very partial to both. I'm going to decide on the slow, but if in an ideal world, I'd go right in the middle and I'd like maybe a light jog or yogging, the J is silent.
It's supposed to be wild.
Yeah.
So different zombies, different needs.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, different times.
Yeah. Thanks for your question, Robin.
Yeah, it was a good question. Thank you.
You alluded to it earlier, Matt. Danny Boyle argues that 28 Days Later is not a zombie movie. He doesn't like zombie movies very much. He was inspired to make a film which was critical of society's inability to control anger and violence in the culture, citing the spike in road rage incidents as a direct influence in the narrative. Can you remember that? Road rage was such a massive thing in the century.
Yeah, it was huge, yeah.
It was all the rage. Hence the rage virus bit of the film.
Yeah.
Boyle said that he wanted to capture that moment of incandescent, murderous fury that you have when you're driving a car and you just lose it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
We have, even the most mild-mannered.
Yeah, absolutely. We've all lost it at something for just a split second.
Sure thing.
Yeah, unless it's 4 a.m. and there's a beautiful girl telling you to go a different direction, then you're absolutely sound.
Yeah. Happy with that.
What the fuck's this? Oh, sorry, love.
Yeah. Just 10 minutes. That's fine. I'll wait.
Oh, relax, you're on the meter.
As a counter to what Boyle said, Alex Garland, the writer, says it is 100% a zombie movie, which, if you take away the semantics, it's a zombie film.
It is a zombie film, of course it is.
And over to you, Matt, taking us out with this sequence.
Yeah, I'm picking up after he meets Lena and Mark because despite everything that they've told Jim, our parents are gone, your parents are gone, everyone you love is gone. You can't blame Jim for saying no, I want to find out. So it's brutal when Mark says, we'll rest night and then tomorrow we'll all go and find your dead parents together.
Yeah.
Because he knows.
Because he knows.
He knows.
You know he's right. The best scenario Jim can hope for is finding an empty house because maybe they got out in the evacuation. But obviously that's not what he finds. And that contrast between urban London and this nice little suburban area is so striking because, this is everywhere. It's got everyone. But it's that moment when Jim is climbing the stairs in his house and he gags because he can smell it.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, the dread you get in your stomach, especially first around what is he going to find?
Yeah.
And the really horrific thing, this is actually the best case scenario for them because the infected didn't get to them, and they've taken the decision into their own hands, and they've taken a pretty peaceful way out.
Yes.
And the camera work is just superb here, that slow reveal of the emaciated corpses, because I think Boyle halted at like a respectful distance and for respectful time. He doesn't like leer at the cops like, oh, this is disgusting. It's like, this is heartbreaking. Look how sad this is. And it's another sequence where I just have to mention the music. Like, I'm not religious, but Abide With Me is a really powerful piece of music.
Yes, it is.
The version here, it's so quiet and low key, which makes it even more affecting. And it's the note that they've left him. We left you sleeping, now we're sleeping with you. Don't wake up.
Don't wake up.
Oh, my God. Chilling.
Yeah. I mean, this scene, right from the first viewing, this scene was just seared into my brain. And the rest of the film could be absolute dog shit. And I'd still saying, but it's got that scene where Jim finds his parents and it's heartbreaking and incredible stuff, this.
But I tell you what, that wine must have been shit. You're going to die and you leave half a bottle. Get it finished, man.
Me as well.
Well, exactly.
Matt with some poignant and thought through words, and Westy's just come and trampled all over it.
Just get pissed.
Oh, so a bleak and bloody opening to 28 Days Later, full of intrigue and identity.
Yep.
The director.
The director of the piece was Danny Boyle. His fifth feature coming after Shallow Grave, Trainspotting, A Life Less Ordinary, and The Beach. Some big hits, some big misses.
He needed a hit, didn't he?
He needed a hit,
He
yes,
needed
indeed.
this one to come along.
So Boyle's work on the film, and I think what he does well is taking a very, very, very lean script and a straightforward narrative and making it come to life visually.
Yeah.
He did the same in Trainspotting, although that film has got much more iconography in the dialogue. Here, there's virtually none of that. It's all about the visuals.
Yeah.
Those aerial shots of Jim and Selena walking the streets tell you how alone and isolated and vulnerable they are.
Yeah.
That shot, like you mentioned, Matt, of Jim's parents on the bed, a horrifying image.
Yeah.
But we know exactly what their fate was and that they died together in the relative security of each other.
Yeah.
And that's just all in the composition. And then there's that scene where Jim evades his execution, making it out the blockade and sounding the alarm. No dialogue. It's pure visceral visual language, all aided by the rain, the edits, the shot choices, and sound design.
Yeah.
None of that in the script.
No.
So to say that Danny Boyle is a great visualist, I think is very much an understatement for me. Alex Garland had this to say about Boyle. He said in the script, that whole sequence of Jim walking out of the hospital, walking up through central London, finding all these notes on Piccadilly Circus, might have been about 10 lines in the script. In the film, it expands out to one of the most significant, memorable sequences. For the writer to say that, high praise indeed. And he's absolutely right. The dialogue is sparse. It's a very, very thin narrative, but it's so striking visually.
Yeah.
Westy, what do you think about Boyle here?
It's the way that he commands the camera and moves it and keeps it still when it needs to be still. Like you said about that opening sequence, I mean, them shots are beautifully framed. You know, the composition is just is there and it is spot on, and there's not a lot of time to get that right. But he knows how important that is. If that composition's off, it's ruined. There's no point.
Yeah, exactly.
So he knows how important that is. But the thing that really sticks out for me when I watched the film again is that discussion between Jim, Selena, and Mark, where Mark's given his backstory of how his parents died. And the camera is moving. It's just moving to each person. And it's behind Selena, almost like you're in her head, and Mark. And it's such an intimate scene where you could just have cover. He's got 10 cameras. We know he's got 10 cameras. He's bought them. So you've got them there. You could just put 3 cameras, one on each of them, and just say, right, there you go. And then cut it between them. But he decides to put one on a Steadicam and move it where he needs to move it and move it back. And it's that attention to detail and that visual language that he does. And I think it's that low budget feel that everyone now is like, why does it look like that? Why does it look like that? Why is it like that? It's an artistic license that he's got and that he sticks to his guns with it. It's very confident. It's very solid. the direction in this. He knows exactly where the camera's going and exactly where the actors are going.
Yeah.
Left, right, doesn't matter. It's choreographed to perfection.
Yeah.
I mean, you can give him an iPhone now and he'd make an incredible film.
Yeah.
He's just got that look, and he reminds me of he's like a British Soderbergh in that kind of respect.
I was thinking Soderbergh,
where you would just give him a camera and say, make something out of that, even if it's just 3 people sitting in a shop and you need to get intimacy, and he does it. And that's what Boyle brings to this. And it's not just a couple of scenes, it's every scene.
Yeah, I said at the top, it's very, very Danny Boyle. And I said that because I think he's at his best when he's got a challenge to push back against, like Trainspotting. Danny, you can't turn this book into a film. Watch me, I'm going to.
Yeah, he's so creative with restriction, isn't
he? That's it. 127 hours. Danny, you can't make a film about a guy stuck under a rock for 5 days. I can, and I'm going to, and watch how good it's going to be.
Yeah. Do you want to see what a nerve sounds like when it gets cut?
Yeah, exactly.
Watch this.
I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
Christ. Yeah. And I think for this, any other director, you said to them, I want you to make an apocalyptic zombie film set in a completely deserted London for £8 million. They'd go, not a chance.
No.
Not for that amount. But it's exactly what Westy says there. This is what Boyle does. He just comes alive with solutions and creative ideas. Like, how we're going to show this deserted London? We're just going to get up really early and we're going to work fast. And that's what I get from this film, a huge sense of pace in every scene, no pun intended with the zombies. Like, I don't know for sure, but I imagine he did 3 or 4 takes of a scene, tops, and then he just moved on because he didn't have the time or the money to waste on big setups or take after take after take. Like that shot where Jim walks past the upturned bus, they had 20 minutes to get it on its side, shoot it, and then get it back up again.
Jesus
20
Christ.
minutes. Other directors would have a breakdown about that.
Yeah. I mean, that would take you 10 minutes to tip over.
Yeah, exactly.
And put back up. So you must have had 4 minutes to shoot 2 shots.
Yeah.
And again, what's that on Cillian Murphy? But I mean, it must be that confidence that Boyle's given him, being like, I know you've been in nothing else, but just do this. Honestly, it's going to work.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing about Boyle. Like, apparently he is a good guy to work with. And I can just imagine he's quite an inspirational guy in these situations. I get the impression he's really good at getting the best out of everyone and getting everyone like pumped up and energetic and believing they can deliver in these like compressed time schedules that they've got to work with. And I think it just infests the whole film with this urgency. The narrative flies along. Jim wakes up, meets Mark and Selena. Mark's out of there. They meet Frank and Hannah. They go up north. It doesn't pause a breath. And flies by. And the attack scenes have such ferocity to them, such an edge. And again, it's Boyle because he's not dwelling on it. He's not over-directing it. He's just getting them done. Don't overthink anything. Just get into it. And it just becomes pure Danny Boyle. Fuck you, Hollywood. I can do what you do on a tenth of the budget.
Yeah. Boyle said that not having the money can be a problem, or it can be a kind of freedom. And for us, it was a freedom. I suppose, necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
The values in the film, part of the inspiration for that was from, do you remember the Ebola outbreak that happened in Uganda about 2000?
Oh, yes.
Yes, indeed.
Because the symptoms for that include rashes, hemorrhaging and reddened eyes. And this was actually later expanded on when they did a graphic novel 28 days later, The Aftermath, and that theorized that Ebola was a carrier, which had then mutated into the rage virus.
And also hydrophobia, which is the fear of water as a result of rabies, was a big influencer. They took inspiration from photos of the 30s showing rabies victims with utter terror in their eyes when being approached by a bowl of water. This look was transferred directly into the film.
Yeah, you can visualize that with the look in the eyes of those zombies.
Yeah.
Every close-up, yeah.
Every close-up, absolutely. To add to the realism in the film, Alex Garland said that images from news footage was deliberately referenced throughout.
Yeah.
He said the gas station explosion was based on a bombing in Northern Ireland. The bodies in the church were an image from a Rwandan genocide.
Right, yeah.
When Jim's taken out to be executed, was modelled on a shot taken in Bosnia.
Yeah.
And when he picks up the money in the streets, it was based on quite a famous image from Cambodia in the 70s when the Khmer Rouge abandoned capital Phnom Penh and the streets were awash with money.
Right,
Yeah. There was the mother and the baby as well in the gas station. That was another one,
Yeah. And although there's scene at Piccadilly Circus with the missing photos like you mentioned, Matt, it eerily taps into 9/11.
Yeah.
It was based on the aftermath of an earthquake in China originally.
Right, yeah.
And Boyle said if he did it after 9/11, he wouldn't have shot that sequence.
Not surprised.
No,
not surprised.
Surprised in the slightest, no.
And I think because of that, there's a great narrative flow which comes down to this thematic consistency in the film's imagery throughout. And to wrap us up on Danny Boyle, we have our second Patreon question. This time it is from Dwayne Collivet. How you doing, Dwayne?
Hello, Dwayne.
Hello, Dwayne.
Dwayne asks, if Danny Boyle hadn't directed this film, who else do you feel could have done an interesting job of it? Westy.
At the time. So we're talking 2002.
Well, whatever you want.
Right, okay. Well, I went at the time. I don't know why I double checked. At the time,
Self-imposed.
because that's what I've done.
Phew.
Thank goodness. Yeah, I mean, I would have gone. I've mentioned it before, but I think Steven Soderbergh would have done something pretty interesting with this.
Yeah.
Probably used a similar camera, similar setup, similar vibe. Shane Meadows around the time, early 2000s. Dead Man's Shoes came out in 2004, and that's incredibly English, and this is incredibly English. It's very, very much like
so.
it's still like this now. It's not Get Carter anymore. Spike Jonze would have done a pretty interesting take on it, I think, in early 2000s. I think he was
very much.
He was quite exciting at that point. And then to go any bigger, you'd probably just go Ridley Scott, wouldn't you?
Yeah, why
like,
not?
There you are. You know, at that point, give it to Ridley Scott. That gas station would have been the whole of London. 8 million just on that explosion, probably. But yeah, I would have said Soderbergh if I have to pick one.
Okay, very nice. Matt, what about you?
Yeah, I did also think Shane Meadows. I think you watched Dead Man's Shoes, so it was the vigilante horror. Would have been really interesting to see him take his spin on a zombie.
Yeah.
Ken Loach would have made a proper socialist horror film.
All
the zombies are dead miners attacking 10 Downing Street.
That would have been good.
Grabbing all the Thatcher, gnawing down on her. Bit of revenge.
Lovely.
And then if you went American, I think maybe the other Spike Lee, he could do something pretty interesting, I think. He would maybe go like New Orleans setting, kind of tapping to the voodoo background. So yeah, maybe Spike Lee for a proper answer.
Okay, right. Brilliant. I'm surprised that neither of you came up with the two names that I've come up with.
Okay. Did it David Fincher and Louis Guzman?
William Friedkin.
Billy Friedkin, Brian De Palma. Do I need to say any more?
No, just Guzman. Make him direct. Stars directs, right?
No, but I always impose these kind of rules on myself without them being in the question. So I'm thinking, right, okay, so who's going to direct? So it's got to be around the time and it's got to be British. Okay, let's go. I don't know why I do it.
I know.
So that's where I was. I wouldn't change Danny Boyle to begin with. I'll just disclaimer first off.
Yeah,
but if schedules didn't align, I would like to see Ben Wheatley. I know it was a little before his time. But his style would fit, I think. I think he might have brought a little bit more darkly comic humor to it. But if you're unconvinced, just watch Kill List.
Yeah.
And bringing it even closer to home, Neil Marshall, I think, would sit in the director's chair quite comfortably.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, he would,
Nice.
It's the same year he made his debut feature, Dog Soldiers, and 3 years, personal favourite, The Descent.
The Descent,
Imagine that 28 days later, then The Descent. Whew.
After Dog Soldiers, that would be a massive trilogy.
Quite
amazing.
What a trio.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd be happy with either of those, although the finished article might have been slightly different.
Just a little
Certainly different with Ken Loach.
Yeah. That's a little bit out there, but, I'm sticking with it.
A little bit out there.
Yeah.
Well, as it turns out, it was Danny Boyle who delivered something outstanding on 28 Days Later.
Yes,
I'm going to sign off here by a great quote from the big man himself. He said, "It's not that interesting just to sit within the genre. You've got to be trying to do something with it that maybe hasn't been done before."
Yep.
And I think he succeeded on that score for sure.
Absolutely did.
The cast.
A talented cast in the lead roles of 28 Days Later. Both Cillian Murphy and Naomi Harris would go on to forge impressive careers over the next 20 years. Westy, who have you picked out in the cast?
I've picked out Cillian Murphy.
Yes.
Great performance, as we've touched on. Very important performance. I mean, he's got to carry the whole thing. He's got to carry the start. Like we've already said, a lot of pressure on his shoulders. You see a real trust with Danny Boyle here. You can see a real connection. I think he's very, very electric on screen. I think his charisma with everyone else that he acts with on screen is fantastic. It's got a real star persona here. And I think it's just a matter of time before that explodes. Forgive the pun, but it's just before he was to become greater. You can see it, and I don't think he's actually at his potential here. I think he's close to it, and the character goes to places which we'll talk about at the end of the film. But I think because of his performance, I think it makes that believable. You kind of buy it. You kind of buy that he'd just be that fucking angry. That he has that physicality to it. It's not completely unbelievable. I think he brings that to it. It's really measured, really well thought through, and a really believable character. And is just very, very good, very believable. And he's got to be the audience. He's got to be us. He's our confusion. He's finding out. He's scared. He's finding his way through all of these places as we are. And you want to go with him. And I think that's his charisma and that's his personality. And that's, like I said, like a superstar kind of persona in the making, that you want to follow him around. And that he puts all of this on his shoulders and still makes it believable now. I think it's a really, really brilliant performance.
Yeah, he's a fantastic performance. I think there's not much humour in the film.
No.
But I think it's darkly funny when he's attacked at his parents' house and he can't believe his eyes. He says, "It's Mr. Bridges."
Yeah.
He's 4 doors down.
Yeah.
It's like Shaun of the Dead, that.
Mark does.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, no. But Cillian Murphy wasn't first on the list. It was Ewan McGregor, who'd worked with Boyle on Trainspotting, obviously.
Of course.
But they had a falling out over The Beach, which I think McGregor was meant to be cast in.
Yes, that's right. Lucky Leo got the job.
Yeah. So they didn't really speak for a while, so he was out of the picture. And then Ryan Gosling was next on the list.
Wow.
But I think there was scheduling problems and that didn't align. And that could have been incredibly interesting.
Could have been interesting.
Really interesting.
I really like Gosling.
I
love Gosling, yeah.
I know though, as well as those two, James McAvoy auditioned for the part when he was a complete unknown.
Right.
But when he went in, he actually found out he was auditioning for a zombie part, not the lead.
Right.
I don't know how he thought he was going in for the lead. No, he was a zombie. And Boyle asked him to do a backflip during the audition because McAvoy had on his CV that he could do acrobatics. So he did the backflip, still didn't get the part of a zombie. I mean, what were they looking for?
Which zombie's doing backflips?
Yeah, exactly.
It should have gotten Jean-Claude Van Damme if that was the case. The casting process for 28 Days Later was very specifically geared towards unknowns in the lead roles.
Yes.
Obviously, Christopher Eccleston and Brendan Gleeson were familiar faces, and so are Cillian Murphy and Naomi Harris now, but at the time they had only a handful of small parts and were basically unknowns.
Yeah.
Boyle said, "We did that because we didn't want any stars in it. We wanted it to be just ordinary people. These kind of films benefit from people who are not superstars, so that you have an immediate sense that everybody's dispensable."
Yes, very much so.
Which comes across really
well. It does. It's difficult in retrospect because it's Cillian Murphy and Naomi Harris.
Yeah.
It's a reflection of how good they are as performers, that they went on to have this career. But a great performance from Murphy, showcasing what we would get from him as an actor for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Matt, what about you in the cast? Who's your pick?
Well, I'll go with Naomi Harris for a lot of the similar reasons. You know, you looked at her now, she was great in Moonlight a few years ago. Really enjoyed. It was Moneypenny in the Daniel Craig Bond films. She's really good in those.
Oh, yeah.
So it's very much like Cillian Murphy. It's like, there's a star in the making.
Very much.
But it's what Boyle says, as unknowns, they're so effective because they've just got the everyman persona about them still. And I think she's really good here. She does sell that idea of somebody who's been through hell in a very short amount of time. You know, she's battle hardened already. That speech about if someone gets infected, could be your brother, could be your sister, you've got between 10 and 20 seconds to kill them. And she tells Jim, if it happens to you, I'll do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Completely believe that.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I love
Especially when you see she does it to Mark, who should spend a whole lot more time with.
Yeah.
And it's that same survival instinct when they meet Frank and Hannah. Doesn't want to team up with them because they'll only slow her down. Yeah. So in a lot of ways, she's very selfish, but I'm always on her side. And I think Harris's performance carries that. You know, she's very likable. And I think she's probably got the best speeches to deliver. Like when she tells Jim what the infection was like, it wasn't on the TV anymore. It was in the street outside. It was coming through your windows. That's brilliant. That puts it in your head. It's really haunting.
Yeah, it is. Very visual.
Yeah, really visual. And it's the same when she says to Jim, you're thinking you'll never hear another piece of original music again or see a film that hasn't already been shot. You know, she just lives that dialogue really well. Although it's funny when he goes, that's what you were thinking. Like, he's not quite as dour as her, which I like.
Yeah.
So you can tell she's built up this protective shell, but obviously as the film progresses, you see the vulnerability underneath. You know, she really takes to Hannah, particularly after Frank is killed. And when they realise what the soldiers want them for, you know, I just want her to be okay. She's going to do everything she can to look after her. And but you do also get that really funny moment where they've stopped on the way and she tells Jim not to go in the roadside cafe for cheeseburgers. And he just mutters, it's like going on holiday with your fucking aunt. Like, she plays it just right. She's a little bit of a pain in the arse about things.
Yeah. But she's doing it for the right reasons.
But she's doing it for the right reasons, I think it's a really, really spot-on performance from House. I really like her in this.
Yeah, great. I love how she moves and acts without fear or love or remorse.
Yeah. She's
battle-hardened, like you said, in a very short space of time.
Yeah.
And great hair.
Oh, hair's amazing.
Wonderful
It's
hair.
magnificent.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Unreal. She does have a couple of lines that I go, oh, she didn't need that. She delivers them all right. It's when she does them, the monologues you were talking about, the big speeches. She's wonderful.
Yeah.
But when they first go into the flat and she's like, it's the infected.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
And then when she sees the rats and she's like, they're running from the infected. It's like, I know. I know. You don't need to do that.
Is everybody listening to this?
Yeah. Come on, guys. You know. It's almost like she stops the whole film and turns to the camera and she's like, just to let you know.
Yeah. The infected is still out there.
Yeah, I think it would be miles better if, them lines weren't in it, but she does the best with them, I guess.
Yeah,
she does.
So Naomi Harris and Boyle, because she's so battle-hardened, they developed a backstory for Selena. So she lived with her parents who became infected. She had to kill them to protect her baby brother, but then she found out that her baby brother was also infected, so she had to kill him as well. Grim.
Oh, shit, look.
Yeah.
Bloody hell. Yeah. I don't think we need that backstory visually.
No, not visually. No,
I don't want to see that.
No.
And I don't think we need to hear that either.
No, I think Mark's is enough to kind of set the tone. I think if she'd come with that as well, you would find it hard to trust the character because you think that she's on the edge.
Yeah.
That you can't really trust her mentality.
Yeah.
I mean, it's enough the way she kills Mark and then she's hacking him with a machete. Yeah. And then she turns to Jim and goes, did any of that get in your mouth?
Yeah.
Did any of it get in yours? Yeah. It's everywhere. Yeah. You've redecorated the kitchen, you maniac.
I actually think Harris is overlooked when it comes to badass horror movie characters, considering she hasn't really made this genre her go-to.
No,
she puts in a really memorable performance for me.
Yeah, definitely.
The final person on the cast list is Megan Burns as Hannah, and that's who I'm going to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to be too harsh on Megan Burns.
No.
But I am very surprised that Boyle cast her, to be honest. Yeah. Her delivery leaves so much to be desired.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if her dialogue was looped in because it seems strangely out of place in the mix, which doesn't really help her cause either. She does portray the resourcefulness of her character well. She can fix a flat tire in a heartbeat and drive the damn thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But unfortunately for me, I feel like this role has been miscast.
Yeah.
That stretch when she's high at the end.
Yeah.
I don't see any difference in her performance then or in the first two acts.
No.
She's sleepwalking through the whole thing.
Yeah.
I'm fine, honestly.
Yeah.
What?
And I think the emotion that we should feel at her losing her dad is completely absent in the film.
Yeah.
And I think that's a misstep.
Yeah.
Maybe Boyle took it out because it just didn't play.
Yeah, you get it more from Selena and Jim talking about it. How do you think she feels?
Yeah.
She's lost a dad. And you feel more from their emotion than you do from hers.
Yeah.
Well, it was only a second feature. Her debut was in a Stephen Frears drama called Liam, which had come out in 2000. And then she only appeared in one other film after this as well, which was in 2018 called Intruders. So she didn't really do the acting thing. Instead, she focused on music and she performs under her goth pseudonym, Betty Curse.
Yeah. Yeah, she obviously doesn't have the chops, I suppose. And I don't really want to go on about her performance. Some people just aren't born stars or born performers.
No.
And she did come under quite a flack for her performance, including some very unkind things.
Yeah.
She said, I started to feel a little embarrassed and I started to feel guilty, like I let the film down. She said there were people who'd somehow found my personal email address and they'd send emails and refer to me as the cancer on the film industry.
Yeah.
What?
I mean, it's outrageous.
That is horrific.
That's disgusting.
Particularly hurtful, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I mean, that's absolutely disgusting. I don't think that performance is anywhere near to warrant that level of reaction at all. I think Boyle cast her because she seems very ordinary. She just seems like a normal person with an ordinary delivery. I'm just not bothered about anything. Well, she might just have that kind of mental state. You can address it any way you want to. But
you can, you can spin it if you wanted that she's been through trauma.
Yeah, it's absolutely bilious for people to think they've got any fucking right to do that. It's absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, I would counter that. The people saying that to her, they are the cancer.
Yeah.
Well, they are. Yeah.
Horrific.
I can't defend the performance too much. It is quite poor. It's not great. But what I would say is this film she made a debut in, she did win an award for that at a Italian film festival as most promising newcomer.
Okay.
And I would say this film's got such a low budget, and I don't know for sure, but I can imagine they didn't spend that much on the casting. Because if you're doing auditions after auditions after auditions, you're paying your casting director day after day after day. So it wouldn't be surprised if they looked at that and went, oh, she's the right age, she's just won an award for promising newcomer. We've got 2 days. We've got 2 days of auditions. If she's the best, we'll have her. And at some point, you've got to think, how much support did she get during this film? Because did Boyle and the producers do the due diligence, because it's okay to say that just won an award or whatever, but this is going to be a pretty heavy, intense, fast-moving production. It's very different to a Stephen Frears film.
It's certainly different from a Frears film.
Yeah.
So I feel she kind of got abandoned or just looked aside a little bit in this. And I think the people up the chain need to look at themselves a little bit and think, did they give her the support that she needed?
Yeah, it does feel like she's kind of on her own. And she's got Brendan Gleeson, Cillian Murphy, Naomi Harris.
Yeah, exactly.
She's acting with them three. Yeah. I mean, I think you'd be hard pushed not to look shit with them three acting at that point.
Yeah.
I don't really think a lot of it's her fault, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. So, no, she's not great, but I do feel sorry for her, because if you're 15 and you've been cast in a Danny Boyle film as one of the leads,
you're not going to say no.
You should be like, oh, this is going to be amazing. And it just turned out to be a really sad experience for her.
Which has basically exiled her from the industry.
Yeah, so it was a bad decision all around for everyone involved, and so yeah, that's why I can't get too harsh on it, because I just feel bad for her because it didn't work out. Yeah,
I do. Yeah, it's particularly hearing that story. Yeah. I mean, Jesus Christ, nobody deserves that. I know. No, but overall, a great cast.
Oh yeah,
with the two leads particularly proving their acting chops well before their time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
no surprise they've gone on a huge success since.
This episode of All the Right Movies is sponsored by BetterHelp. Without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is therapy works. But what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships or at work and not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles and start feeling better, because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. Join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself, because you are your greatest asset. And a special offer to all ATRM listeners, you can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/ATRM. That's betterhelp.com/ATRM. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode of All the Right Movies.
The middle.
The second act picks up where we left off. Jim has his first face-to-face encounter with the infected and hits the streets with Selena. That is until they see some lights in the distance and meet some survivors.
Yep.
And what I like here is the opening to this stretch. Again, it's the visual language. We don't need an explanation about the piled-up shopping trolleys.
No.
It's left to our imagination, the horrors that have taken place to make this barricade.
Yeah.
And it puts in mind kind of the resourcefulness of the human race in the face of adversity.
Mm-hmm.
But when the infected strike, this barricade does nothing to stop them.
No.
Showing how much their work has been in vain and highlighting that resistance is pretty much futile.
Yeah.
Really hard to do nowadays, because you have to put £1 in to get them, don't you?
A little bit of social commentary from yourself there, Westy. Lovely. I do love the way that this is edited, and that goes for all the attack scenes. Quick cuts, close-up shots, don't linger on the affected too much to the film's benefit.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot to be said for the post-production here. Editing is swift and merciless, much like the infected, and the sound design of those shrieks send shivers.
Yeah.
Really effective stuff. And then a knight in shining armor, a mute knight in shining armor at the top of the stairwell.
Quite literally, yeah, great.
Yeah.
Frank doesn't move like the infected, but his hack and slash approach is really effective.
Yeah.
And we don't expect this cuddly, mild-mannered dad behind this killing machine facade.
Definitely don't.
Great,
Such a lovely guy.
A wonderful reveal.
Yeah.
What a relief to see Brendan Gleeson, an ATRM favourite, no doubt.
Absolutely.
Really is. He just brings such comfort, doesn't he? Like, if this guy can survive, I can survive. And I think I'll be all right with him around, because it's like you said, Luke, it's the details for me when they do find Frank and Hannah and you realise how they've been surviving. And how everything is so mundane. Like when they go into their flat, I'm like, I know that place from like my friend's house from like back in the 80s that had that wallpaper, that had that furniture.
So familiar, isn't it? Yeah.
It is.
It really is.
Porky little place. But it's all the furnishings and it's just so familiar. Like
the creme de menthe.
Well, that's it.
Got a creme de menthe.
Got some visitors round. Get the creme de menthe out. We only break this out for special occasions. But you do.
Wonderful.
It's just such a welcoming scene. This bless Frank, he's trying to make it so cozy.
Oh.
And it's just these little details like using the Christmas lights to light up the flat and signal for help, because that's the only thing they can use. And it's such a contrast, isn't it? Like the hell of outside. And then you've got these lights playing like Frosty the Snowman or whatever it is in the background. And that collection of buckets on the roof to collect the rainwater, because the water tank is empty. They've used all the cisterns. This is the only source of water they've got left. It's just all these mundane everyday items, but this is what they need for survival. And this is how badly things have fallen apart. And same with Frank, that message, it's just on this little tiny wind-up radio. Mm-hmm. It's just all these little things that you would just overlook in normal everyday life. But in this situation, you have to rely on them to survive.
Yeah, that scene on the rooftop's great, isn't it? I mean, all them buckets. I mean, Boyle asked for 100 buckets, which wasn't enough. And then they had to get, then he wanted 1,000 by the afternoon. So they had 2 hours to go out and get 1,000 buckets, which is why there's some laundry baskets in there with holes in them.
Washing baskets with the holes in
Pointless.
them.
But he's talking about them bits of plastic that he's put over to get the precipitation from the ground. But that doesn't work because it's over tarmac. It needs to be over soil, so it gets the moisture from the ground and then catches it on top. So you need me around if this shit kicks off.
You'd been there, Westy. Could have saved them the problem.
Yeah, me and soil.
Westy and that. Mulch.
Yeah, once you get the mulch in, the size off the roof. And you know how they're trying to collect the water on the roof? I think one of the really, really good visual aids that Boyle puts in, the preservation of life, is how they've kept the water in the fish tank and the fish is still alive.
Yes.
And they're desperate for water, and there's that close-up of it. I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Once to keep life a hand, no doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, just to keep things cheery, just to keep things as normal as possible.
A bit of hope, yeah.
Mm-hmm. The film was shot pretty much sequentially in 2001, and they were filming this scene at Frank and Hannah's flat the night of the 9/11 attacks.
Right.
Yeah.
And obviously the mood was very somber despite kind of, everybody together.
Yeah.
What about you with this sequence, Westy? What do you want to talk about?
I like it when they're busting out of there. They hear the thing on the radio. They make a decision where they're going to go, how they're going to get there. And I love the fact he's got that black cab. Yeah. It's just really funny.
Making jokes.
Yeah. It's the lightest part of the film, and I really love this bit. Yeah. It's like a road trip. They're going away. It's like they packed everything up. Here we go. It's quite positive. We're going somewhere. We've got a mission now. We've got a real purpose. We've got somewhere to be. And they just, when they pull up in front of that tunnel, and you think, no,
don't do that.
Just don't do it. Brilliant shot as well. Just that high angle. Yeah. And that darkness, and then there's the black cab with the black of the darkness. They're going in there. We're not going to see them. We're not going to see where they're going to be, how it's going to play out. And you'd normally roll your eyes at this. Oh, they've got a flat tire, but it's 100% believable.
It is plausible.
Go, and it's Gleason's reaction when he's like, "Oh shit!" And then Jim actually says what we all think: "Oh, it's the world's worst place to get a flat." Yeah, he's like, "Yeah, we're gonna have to do it quickly because that would happen." Yeah. I mean, they're incredibly lucky they just got one flat tire.
Yeah.
Which is
two would be screwed.
Thing. Yeah, it's the build of tension here. Do you hear that?
Oh Christ!
And we're like, "What? Do you hear what?"
Yeah.
And then the rats just turn up.
Yeah.
And you think, right. And then, you get that bit of exposition from Celine. Oh, they're running from the infected, which I think we kind of need at that point, because you think, right, here we go. And then it's the silhouettes and the way they're just painted on the walls.
Christ.
And they're coming in and you can hear them, and it's just this pandemonium. But the thing that really strikes me in this sequence is the editing. It's just so jarring, so fast-paced.
It is.
And it builds beautifully without it being some kind of eye roll. You know the tension's going to build, but you've just seen Mark get wiped out. You've just met these guys. Yeah. Anyone's now fair game.
Yeah.
And it could be anybody at this point, which really works and really ramps that tension up. But it's like an F1 pit stop, isn't it? The speed that Hannah changes this tyre. But you can believe that Brendan Gleeson could lift a black car. I totally believe
Absolutely could,
Forget the jack, and he's, it's up there, right? And it's just like, and then she starts counting down, and you're just going, right, come on. And then they hit the ground, and then we're away. The one thing I don't like is Jim's just really, really confident. He's like, oh, we're sticking the V's up. Good, fuck off. Yes,
As
man.
if we're going to recognise that.
Yeah. It's like just running away for some away fans, like at a football game. I was like, fuck off, mate. Yeah, 3-1 or whatever they say. Penalty shootout. But I really, really love the end of this sequence where the infected just stop running.
Yeah.
I think that's really, really good. And
Yeah.
just
Despondent,
going,
yeah.
right,
Yeah.
okay, next
Yeah.
thing, until they're obviously waiting for something else to grab their attention to run at.
I think it's the single most terrifying scene in the film. Those shadows of the infected engulfing the darkness is an incredible shot.
Yeah, it's unreal.
And I think, though, what comes after this is important because it's such a grim film. But then you get the scene, and every time I watch this scene, it just makes me smile, and it's when they raid the supermarket.
It's a joy.
It's a joy. It's the one bit of pure light relief you get in the film, because I'm sure everyone who has thought about what they would do if they were in this scenario would have all thought, oh, I'd raid a supermarket, like, I'd help myself.
Oh, yeah.
I'd get the best
It's
bottle
like
of whiskey.
Commando, isn't
I
it?
could, yeah.
I love it.
Absolutely. I love the little touch he does when on the way out he just leaves his bank card
He's credit card, yeah.
on the service service desk. That's really good. And again, just another example of how good the soundtrack is. Like, it's such a mixture of songs and styles in this film. There's classical music, there's hymns, there's Godspeed You Black Emperor, there's original stuff, and then there's AM 180 by Grandaddy, which is this really like upbeat little indie rock tune, but it fits so well to this scene. Yeah,
it does.
I really like that scene.
Do you not feel like that supermarket's pretty well stocked?
Well stocked on electricity.
Yeah.
And electricity, yeah.
How's it got that?
Every light's working.
Yeah.
Every shelf's full.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know. I mean,
Should have
it's
been rated
suspenseful.
before then, really, shouldn't it?
Yeah, it feels a bit like a dream sequence, which I guess might be intentional.
Maybe, yeah.
Well, I do like it when Frank sees the apples, which haven't decomposed at all compared to every other bit of fruit and veg.
Yeah.
He just goes, irradiated.
Yeah.
Like that,
Yeah,
like.
it's like spaced.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
that scene.
Yeah.
Okay, so with our heroes tooled up and ready for action, here comes our third and final Patreon question.
Okay.
And this is from Vicky. Hello, Vicky.
Hello, Vicky.
Vicky says, have any of you guys thought about preparing a go bag, i.e. something to grab in the unlikely event? And if so, what's in your go bag? Matt, what is in your go bag?
Well, you know, I'm famously handy with a blade, so I'd definitely take a kitchen knife.
Yeah,
Sure.
Matt
Yeah,
the Blade
famous.
Bartley.
Yeah,
He's
blade.
spinning.
exactly that. That's how I'm known us in the street to see
Matt
him.
the Butcher Barley.
So, yeah, kitchen knife. Obviously, you got to take some water, something to eat, and I do also like to have a book on the go. So I would definitely take something to read because there's going to be a lot of downtime in this situation.
Sure.
I'm going to need something to do. So I'll take something pretty hefty. The Stand or 8 or something like that.
Oh, a big meaty Stephen King couple of novels. There.
Like I say,
Take
I'm
them
going to have a
both?
lot of time on my hands to do some reading.
Yeah, I love how you just said something to eat.
I know.
Well, yeah,
Sunday dinner.
sandwich.
Just pour some fucking gravy in your bag.
Oh, no, I'll stick with the 4-pack of pot noodles. You know,
There
handy.
you go. What
Yeah.
flavour?
Chicken and mushroom always.
Fair point. And you need boiling water, otherwise you're fucked.
It's even dry.
You're
It's
going to
fine.
get boiling water. You're going to eat them dry, man. What, just soy sauce?
Okay, Westy, what's in your go bag?
Well, thankfully, I've thought about this. So none of this
Good.
pot noodle shit. Right.
Enough of this running shit.
Number one, water. Necessity.
Yeah.
Okay. A 6-pack of
Naturally.
Snickers.
Okay,
Nice, like Snickers.
Yeah.
gone in a day. Yeah,
A lighter.
yeah, good
Because you're going to
idea.
need that bread knife just in case there's sandwiches. Because you need to cut the bread. There's nothing worse than a loaf and you're just ripping it trying to make
Yeah,
sandwiches.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
disgusting. 20 Marlboro Lights, obviously. a copy of The Road by Cormac McCarthy.
Right, sure.
Okay, yeah.
Heinz beans and sausages, 6 tins of. And a crossbow.
Crossbow.
Fancy yourself a crossbow, do you?
You never seen me with
It's
a
going to
crossbow.
blow up in your face, Westy.
No arrows, just a crossbow. Just fire Marley lights out of it.
Wow. Okay. I don't know if we're going to survive this, to be honest, considering our contents here.
I don't think I want to.
How big's Westy's bag? He's got a crossbow in there.
No, he's got it on his back.
I'll sling that on me back, man.
He's like John Rambo.
Yeah, it's more of a fanny pack.
Okay, well, I'm going to pack some toffees or some boiled sweets to start off. They're going to last forever.
All right,
World's
Grandma.
originals. Yeah.
Werther's Originals, sarsaparilla tablets, rhubarb and custards, something like that. They're going to give you that much needed boost.
Mm-hmm.
I think Selena's got the right idea with the machete. I think Ash's boomstick from Evil Dead or his chainsaw arm attachment is tempting, but you'd need other resources to maintain them. So the machete or a meat cleaver is the weapon of choice for me.
Nice.
Or maybe even that hunting knife from First Blood, because it comes with a fishing line and a compass and a sharpening stone.
No, that's a good one.
Yeah. Good point.
Take both, just to be safe.
Yep.
Maybe a small musical instrument to while away the lonely hours.
Right. Harmonica.
Harmonica,
Just play the river.
Flute.
yeah.
Where's Luke? Let's just listen. There he is.
And I'm looking at little simple pleasures here. Some cutlery. I'm not likely to be able to wash my hands, so if I'm going to be eating something, I want to do it civilized.
Fair one.
Yeah, fair enough.
Some salt and pepper. If I have to eat something disgusting, I want something to pep it up a bit.
Nice.
And maybe some cologne, splash of brute, something like that, just to
Nice.
keep it fresh.
Nice. Old Spice.
Yeah, just because you want to make yourself feel good.
Yeah, of course.
Well, I was originally going to say that between us, we've got the ultimate kit bag, guaranteed to get you through any tight spot, but I think we've got the shittest kit bag.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd make it to the end of my road, to be honest.
No, you wouldn't.
I don't think I wouldn't make it to yours, Luke. To like team
No,
up with you.
definitely not.
That's all right.
Matt, for everybody, lives 30 seconds from me.
Yeah.
30-second walk as well.
30-second walk. Yeah.
I'd get there. I've got some Snickers.
They're going to be gone in a day.
They're not
Too
mans.
tempting. Delicious.
Yeah, like
Well, yeah, just, you got to ration stuff out.
You want something with sustenance, but that isn't delicious.
Well, like a pot noodle.
Like a pot noodle? Yeah, exactly. The shit idea, pot noodle. You need things to go with it.
soy sauce.
Oh, wonderful. So soy sauce is your saviour, Matt, which I love. Sticking with it.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much for your question, Vicky.
Yes,
And
thanks,
please
Vicky.
let us know what's in your go bag.
Yeah.
Yes, so we can get some fucking ideas.
Yeah,
Thanks, Vicky.
because
Some decent
We're done.
ideas. Yeah.
from the supermarket, our crew have a fun-filled trip up to Manchester. And I'm starting off with the moment where they siphon off some petrol from the abandoned petrol truck that they find. I think it's significant for a couple of reasons. Firstly, Jim makes it inside the restaurant to look for those cheeseburgers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the
well,
devastation he encounters is horrific. Christ only knows what it smells like in there, but he covers his mouth straight away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are bodies on the ground. Most shockingly of all, a dead baby.
Yeah, horrible.
It really hammers home the absolute annihilation of the human race and that the virus will just take no prisoners.
Yeah.
And Jim here has to face up to what Celine has been telling him about all along, to act without hesitation, even if it's a 10-year-old boy that he has to take down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the grim reality of Jim's life now. The world has completely changed, and this is the moment where he really realizes it.
Yeah.
And from Hannah's point of view, her driving the taxi sets up the end when she drives everyone to safety.
Yes. Does, yeah.
And I don't think it's that obvious. I think it's quite subtly written. It's not the, do you remember that she can drive very, very niftily, so, that's going to come out. It's not going to be surprised at the end. I don't think it's that much of a hammer blow.
No, because it's something Frank would teach her in this scenario.
Exactly. Yes,
Completely
exactly.
makes sense.
It highlights that Hannah is just a kid herself. She's arsing around in the car, but she's had a lot of growing up to do.
Yeah.
She's been through an ordeal with losing her mother. So I think this scene highlights the huge upheaval in these characters without the need to really spell it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really like the scene.
What I love, though, is when they're going down the motorway for those empty shots.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Really evocative. And I know to do those, the police control traffic in both directions, and we're gradually slowing it down so Boyle could capture literally just a few shots here and there before traffic would become visible. So again, he got those 10 cameras, different positions along the motorway, and in total used about 60 seconds of footage for it.
It looks as though the entirety of England
It really
is deserted.
does. It really does.
It does. Yeah.
Like when they see Manchester on fire, it's like, fuck.
That's, that shot's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
That's
You just
great.
think, oh, that's where we're going. Oh,
Yeah.
for fuck's sake.
yeah.
Yeah, that's our destination. It's on fucking fire.
God.
Shit.
Let's turn around.
There's almost a serenity to those scenes on the motorway as well, with the dreamlike music playing in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like hanging out the windows and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, we've had the light relief, so it gets grim because when they get to that outpost and it's deserted and it's the build up to Frank's death, it's just so gutting because poor Frank, he was so desperate for this to be their salvation. It was the thing he was pinning all his hopes on. So when it looks like it's been abandoned and the message is just on a loop and no one's actually there, I can barely watch the scene because he just unravels so badly, so quickly. When Selena, her survival instincts kick in, we should go. And his replies the first time he's properly lost it with anyone, go fucking where?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's a big guy, Brendan Gleeson, if he lost his temper, you think, fuck. he's been the most upbeat, the most positive character. So to see him defeated like this, it's just heartbreaking. And it's even when he starts yelling at that crow, get out of it. He's saying that because it's pecking on a corpse. And Frank is such a decent guy. He wants that corpse to have a bit of dignity in death.
Yeah.
And that's why he lashes out, and obviously because it's angry. But just when the infected blood drops in his eye from it.
It's devastating.
It's devastating. I mean, we all love Gleeson, like we've said, and he's great in this as well. But it's when he addresses Hannah, sorry, I lost my temper. I love you. Because he knows he's got seconds for he turns, and he doesn't want Hannah's last memory of her dad when he was still dad to be of him yelling at people. It's absolutely heartbreaking, this. And then put yourself in Jim's position, Selena screaming, kill him, because she's protecting Hannah. He's the one with the baseball bat. But it's this guy who, when you called him dad in your sleep in that earlier scene, you called him dad. And Gleeson has that aura about him. Yeah. And then you just get bam, 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 bam. And then just, where are these shots coming from? Who are these guys? What's going on now?
Yeah.
And obviously, it's ultimately a mercy killing for Frank, but this film is so good at punching you in the gut and making you feel the impact when a character gets killed. It's devastating, this scene.
The film changes in an instant right here.
Yeah.
I'll go from the continuation of this, because when I first saw it, I thought, okay, we're going to different places now. And it was before you would definitely know for a fact that, the dead aren't the people who you should be afraid of. The infected aren't the people you should be afraid of. It's human beings and what human beings will do to each other. And I mean, that's been highlighted in every single zombie film since this. To like even The Walking Dead, that's all that's about. By the end of that, it wasn't even about the zombies anymore. It was about what people would be capable of doing to each other. But this came out of left field for me when I first saw it, and it kind of still does. You still have that little bit of hope, and I think Eccleston is absolutely brilliant in this.
Really
he plays that part so well, so commanding on the screen, and you see him, and every time I see him, even now I still feel this relief. Like, this guy's got command over these people. They're obviously very capable. They put Frank down, and maybe they didn't want to. You don't get a lot of dialogue from them, and they seem like they've got everything under control. There's a gun mounted there. There's defenses. There's a flag. There's a big house. You just think, right, well, I'm going to get looked after here.
Solace.
Soldiers, people that you trust, right? This is the British Army, right? Okay, we're going to be all right. But there's still this sense of foreboding. There's still this underlying tension that Boyle kind of seems to bring to the whole sequence. And I think it's just because of the soldiers. And when you see it the second time, it does bring a completely different vibe to it, the way they're just looking side-eyed at each other. Don't nobody say anything. Don't fuck this up. Leave it to West, who's coming out. He's going to, tell everybody what the crack is. He's going to run the show. And these guys, I mean, the way that they're cast and the way that they're played through and the way that they're directed as the soldiers, I mean, they are so British. They are British.
Yeah, so Larry.
I mean, anywhere you go, if you're not from the United Kingdom, but if you come over here and go out for a night out anywhere, this is a stag do.
Yes, it really is.
All of these lads, they'll probably be dressed like soldiers as well. Now, God, did you fucking see that? Jesus, fucking. And it's just this big bulge to it. And on second view, when it's painfully obvious, but when you first watch it, there is this element of solace, and there is this element of, right, well, they're going to all come together, and it's going to be all the infected coming, and they're all going to have to fight them off, and they're all going to kind of team up, and that's kind of how you think, but it spins a different way. But it's the use of Dutch angles here that shows something just isn't quite right. There's the pace to the editing that shows something isn't quite right, and just the ominous tone that comes across just very, very subtly. I think it's excellently done by Boyle, but it's Eccleston for me that shines here. He's wonderful.
Yeah, it's surprising to see him in this role because, Christopher Eccleston, I look at him as, he's a nice guy.
He's a good guy,
He should be a nice guy. He shouldn't be like this. And that spin is unexpected. Outside the compound, when Jim and Selena are taken in, there's a sculpture, and it's called Leo Kawan and His Sons. It's a guy covered with serpents.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
In mythology, Leoka once said, I fear the Greeks, even bearing gifts, which taps into kind of like the Trojan horse story.
He warned them about Troy,
So this whole compound could be seen as a Trojan horse, offering solace on the outside with unspeakable acts on the inside. I really, really like that. So Jim, Selena, and Hannah have seemingly found safety, but the infected aren't the only monsters out there.
Nope.
The crew.
A tight-knit crew on 28 Days Later. We're firstly talking about Alex Garland and his screenplay. Matt, what do you think of the writing on the film?
I think what Garland does really well is nail the initial concept, like that idea of waking up to find wherever you live completely abandoned. That's a terrifying concept, and I think he exploits that really well. So it's like a lot of the details we've mentioned. The end is well and truly fucking nigh, written as graffiti on a church wall. The missing fly is put up on the wall. All that really resonates because I think it does tap into what the world was like in 2002. As we've mentioned, 9/11 happened during the making of this. So it had a lot more unintentional relevance because the world felt substantially scarier after that date. And you looked at that and you're thinking, the world's being turned upside down. Where does all this rage and hatred come from? And I think it does a really good job of tapping into that. And he does manage to make it feel like no one's done this ID before, even though they definitely have, which we'll mention in a bit. What I don't think he does as well, though, is develop it much beyond that. And I think he does create some issues in the writing. Like, we'll talk about the ending when we get there. But there are definite plot holes. And I'll just focus on one because the title of this film is really snappy. It grabs your attention. Oh, 28 days later, what's happening in the 28 days?
Brilliant.
But I've crunched the numbers on it. Right, so
okay, here we go. Stat man. Here we go.
Stat man. The blade. Machete Matt, here we go. Cutting through the bullshit.
No, so back in 2001, the population of the UK was about 59 million. And according to the film, it's on the poster, they don't start evacuation until day 15. Yes. And obviously, a lot of people are dead, a lot of people infected, but still, that's roughly 4.5 million people per day being evacuated. That breaks down to about 187,000 per hour. You're not getting that many people off per hour from the country.
No, it's not believable, is it?
It's not
Tory
believable.
Statistics.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a kind. It doesn't overly bother me. It doesn't take me out of the film, but I think it's just a good example of the issues with the writing. It's like superficial, great, and it grabs you. But you can pull it apart quite easily, and there's logic holes in it. And I think, like, if a film is like running a race, but everyone has to cross the line at the same time, it's like Danny Boyle has Alex Garland on his shoulders to get him over the finishing line. I think he's really...
You're coming with me.
You're coming with me. I'll get you over there. So as a script, it's got really great building blocks, but I think it's the direction that really elevates the script.
I'm the same with that. Yeah, I think Alex Garland's a real talent. I think for what he can see, I think he kind of sees into the future a little bit further than other people do. I think he's predicting these things and nails it. Well, nails half of it really, really well. I think the first half of the film is unprecedented in how well that's captured or how well that's predicted, because we've all seen it and it's spot on. Yeah. Absolutely spot on. And I think he does the same thing with like Ex Machina. I think we're going to watch that in 20 years and go, he's fucking ahead of his time with AI. Like everyone's got these now, you know, and he's got that kind of look. But I think, like Matt said, it does feel like he's taking his time with the premise. But there's just not as much research put into the content all the way through. Yeah. I think the first half of the script's perfect. Yeah. And then he's like, oh, well, what if we just did this? Yeah. And you're kind of moving away from what built the first half of the film in the first place, was that wideness, but still claustrophobia, that wonder, that, you know, that reveal the mystery. I think it all just comes and slaps you in the face. All the exposition in the second half is like, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. We need to do this, this, and this, and that's it. You're fairly safe now. And it's quite a letdown for the audience to think I was, you know, in suspense for this half. Where's it going? Manchester's on fire. London's completely deserted. Everybody's dead. What are we going to do? You know, and it could have gone anywhere. And I think it's kind of the easy approach to then, we're going to address the human condition in this whole situation and just concentrate on that for the last half of the film. And I think that's kind of where the writing lets it down, which we'll go into when we talk about the end of the film. But I mean, it's incredible concept, incredible vision. But content, I think he just needed like maybe another year just to sit with it and make it something really special.
Yeah, I'm, you know, it's Danny Boyle. Yeah. I can't argue. But I'm just surprised that he would take this script and this third act. I'm surprised that he wouldn't make any changes to that third act. I probably have the same issues as you.
I think he probably just got really excited, so excited
about
by
the
that
first two acts.
For the first two acts. That he probably got a bit blind to it, like, we'll fix it in post, or Alex will come up with something else near the time. And by the time he gets there, well, that's what we're going with then. Okay.
Well, I think because Alex Garland's concept is so strong and simple in many ways, he knows he's got a great director on board as well. Yeah. So he doesn't really need to fill it with unnecessary frills.
No.
It's very lean script, very little in the way of backstory. But the backstory we get with Jim is so effective, you don't really need any more than that. Yeah. I think Garland has created characters that are very relatable. And it's difficult to know where the line is drawn because he's obviously created the characters, but how much involvement has Danny Boyle got in that and the actors?
Yeah.
Before the virus, these were normal people going about their normal lives. And I think that puts you in the shoes of the main characters and you're questioning what you would do in this diabolical situation.
Yeah.
And I think that because they aren't played by action heroes either, that really helps reinforce the writing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it grounds it, totally.
Yeah, it does. I maybe do have a little issue with the final third. It is a personal thing. It doesn't necessarily shift tones, it just shifts gears. It changes into a slightly different film.
Yeah.
When we get to the compound, it takes on a different meaning. And thematically, obviously, that's what Boyle and Garland went for. And, you know, some people like that, some people don't. But I would have preferred a different third act.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We may not be talking about the film now had the third act changed into be more of a familiar, straight down the line zombie film.
True.
There's nothing wrong with the third act as such, the way that it's written. I don't like it for this film.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just the opening's so strong, isn't it?
I know.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think if you look the final, if someone showed you the final third and you hadn't seen the rest of the film, I think like, oh God, wow,
Yeah,
that's intense.
I agree.
Yeah.
But then
yeah.
you watch the whole thing, you're like, I wish they'd kind of stayed on the road a bit. So
It doesn't fit.
yeah,
No.
I don't think there's nothing wrong with it. It just doesn't fit with this film
Yeah.
or the
Yeah.
first two acts.
Because what he's done so well is taken themes that are right in front of her face. You know, Ebola virus, foot and mouth was massive late 90s.
yeah.
You know, road
Striking
rage.
fear into
Road
the
rage,
public.
like you've said. And it's like, oh shit, that's right in front of my face. I didn't see that.
Yeah.
And then in the last third, he leans back on traditional concepts, on shit you've seen a million times.
Yeah.
For the screenplay, Garland took inspiration from two main sources. Around a year or two before he wrote it, he was playing the video game Resident Evil.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, it just sounds like Edgar Wright here.
He does, yes.
He said that zombies hadn't been in popular culture for a while, and he thought to himself, the zombies themselves didn't pose much of a threat because they were slow moving.
Yeah, and Garland said the tension, I think, from the game did not come from the zombies themselves. It came from the fact that you didn't have many bullets to deal with them. So I thought, what if the zombies moved as quickly as the dogs did?
And the other source of inspiration is the John Wyndham novel, The Day of the Triffids, which was in 1951.
Yeah.
And then they adapted it to a movie in 1963, which sees the world overtaken by killer plants. And if you've seen the film, it's got a whole abandoned London opening.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Yeah, it's really effective.
Right, great, yeah. I've seen people, when we were asking for Twitter comments and Twitter reviews for this film, I've seen people that it's very derivative of the Day of the Triffids. Not just inspiration, derivative of it.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Two strange sources was Resident Evil and Day of the Triffids.
That's where you get the originality from, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose
Steal
so.
from the best.
I think we're all in agreement, though. Solid work from Alex Garland, but to a point.
Yes.
Next in the crew, we're talking about Anthony Dodd Mantle and his unique approach to cinematography.
Yeah.
Westy, take it away.
The cinematography in this, people are up in arms about it if you search for it. And it's just, why does 28 Days Later look so shit? Why does it look so bad on my brand new 55-inch curved television? Because it was
UHD.
Yeah, because it's supposed to. And that's the whole point. I mean, 8 million budget. And what they did was they shot it on a Canon XL1, which came out in 1998. Boy, did I want a Canon XL1 when they came out in 2000. Oh, God, that was just the dream to have a Canon XL1 shot on mini DV video. It was just the camera to get. And when they came out in 98, they were about £3,000 per camera. Right. And you're shooting mini DV, so you just load it. It's speed here, not necessarily quality. So that's what he's going for. You can get a lot of cameras, you can load them quickly, you can shoot within seconds. If he's shooting 35mm and he's trying to load 10 cameras on the bridge, it's already it's lunchtime. So it isn't going to happen. So it looks that way intentionally. And I think the genius of what Dodd Mantle brings to it is, like I've mentioned before, it's the use of composition. It doesn't matter how bad that or the quality of that image is. You look at the way them frames are composed and what's in that shot and how important that is visually. And the movement of the cameras and how well that's done by Boyle and how they're working together with it. They know for a fact it's going to look like this. They wanted that documentary feel. They wanted that grungy feel. Again, it's down to necessity. It's down to creating something when you do have boundaries put up in front of you. You've got to break them barriers down and say, how do we do this on this budget? At the time, it looked great. I remember going to cinema and thinking it looked great. It's not down to Dodd Mantle. It's not his fault. It's not badly shot. It's shot like this on purpose. And once you know that,
it's an artistic choice, isn't it?
It really, really works. So it solves two problems at once. It's an artistic choice, and at the same time, it keeps the budget down, and he can cover it with 10 cameras. And I think if you shot the whole film on 35mm, it would not be as good. it would just be, you would come out of the film. It'd be too glossy.
Yeah.
It would be too clean.
Yeah, it
and
would.
it wouldn't really work. You feel like you're holding that camera and you're part of it. And it's almost a documentary, and that's where they get wrecked from. So, I mean, it is influential in the way that it's done. So I think it's really, really great work. It's ballsy to do. It's using new technology at the time, and it still pays off. I'm glad it looks shit. I really am.
Yeah. Matt, what are your thoughts on the cinematography?
I really like it. I think it's got such a distinctive look to it. And yeah, it's divisive. And Todd Mantley comes from the Dog Me 95 movement, which is when he's working with people like Lars von Trier, making those really gritty, unbelievably realistic looking dramas. And that's what Boyle wanted. And he could have hired someone to give it a more straightforward look, but that's not what he wanted. And even though it is everything that Westy says, it's still a very cinematic film. And I think Todd Mantle does a lot of interesting things with the camera. You know, we've mentioned already a lot of Dutch angles, which aren't necessarily in your face, but that add up to the disorientation that you feel throughout the film. You know, this is on an angle and this doesn't feel quite right. And I think those opening London scenes with Jim, it would be so easy to cheat a bit and just keep it really tightly focused on Jim. So you could have people just a little bit out of shot. But no, they want to have really wide shots. They want to look really expansive, huge shots of London Bridge. And he captures that so well. You know, the shots from way up on the tops of buildings looking down on Jim.
Yeah, they're great.
They are great. So the composition is really interesting, really great. And I love some of the camera movement as well, like towards the end when West is hunting Jim at the barricade and the rain is lashing down.
Yeah.
And the way that camera just pans across Jim, just stood stock still against the back of the Jeep when to take his move. I love stuff like that. So yeah, the look of the film for me is really key to its success.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. My overriding feeling is that the film is disgusting to look at. It looks like, I don't know if you ever did it, but it looks like an 80s TV show recorded on VHS at the time from TV. It looks like a taped episode of The Young Ones or something like that. It looks horrible.
Yeah.
But that's the entire point. It's supposed to be almost documentary style, and that gets right under your skin. You really feel this film.
You do.
And if you look at it as well, I mean, all the conventions are there, all the rules are there. He's still doing exactly what he needs to do. I mean, you look at the lighting on the London sequences, that's all sunlight, but he's backlit, he's separated from the background, you know, where he needs to be. Even like, the quality gets better. Once they're in the mansion in the third act, which we're going to talk about now, the quality is far, far superior. The lighting's incredible. You know, there's some really nice chiaroscuro, there's really nice shadows, there's really nice highlights. It's just very, very cleverly done. And it does get better as the film gets on. And I think that's intentional as well, and really fucking hard to do.
Yeah.
And like shooting with these kind of cameras, just loads of benefits. You shoot on the fly, no traditional shot setup, and they're small, so they're able to get in tight spaces, employ those unusual angles, which add to the frantic nature of the infected and the narrative as well. It all thematically combines really well.
Yeah.
So Matt said it was still at that time an inferior quality imaging camera, but it had a shutter facility that I'd messed around with in America, which is what we're talking about, this frantic shutter. So Danny was fascinated by the kind of brittle, savage, hectic ability that the digital shutter had to capture movement. You can create this demonic atmosphere by seeing all of the frames, which, works really well.
Yeah.
It's got this stop-start motion to it.
It happens all the time now. People are doing that left, right, and
Yeah, it
center.
does. Yeah. Fury Road.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mentioned there, Todd Mantle, he started off in the Dog Me 95 movement, and one of those films is Festin from 1998, which Boyle had seen and was a huge fan of, and he loved the camera work, and he said there wasn't much lighting, but it made you focus on the choice of how you use the camera and how you move it. So Boyle left a voicemail for Mantle, who was in Copenhagen at the time, because that's where they shot all these films, asking to come out to see him. But Mantle literally ignored it for a couple of weeks because he just thought it was his friends playing a joke on him, pretending to be Danny Boyle.
Oh, nice.
Great. I think Iben Jejle, who was also from Denmark, did a similar thing when Stephen Frears called her for
High Fidelity.
High Fidelity
as well.
Yeah.
No, he's not phoning me.
I think big shout outs should also go to Chris Gill on editing duties and John Murphy, who provided the music, not to mention the song choices.
Yes.
But Alex Garland's writing and Anthony Dodd Mantle's cinematography stand above the crowd.
Yes.
Definitely.
The end.
The third act brings with it a tour of Major West's compound and a devastating reveal. And I'm starting off with Jim being introduced to the boys' resident zombie, Mailer.
Yeah.
Nice, yeah.
Those point of view shots that have been making his way through the dirty laundry are great, because we've seen this point of view shot before, so we know what's coming. Only this one is chained up. I think that's really effective.
Yeah, it's really good. It's Jim's reaction as well. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
Just hiding behind. No, shit.
Yeah. When they first make it to the country house, there are two soldiers that open up the barricade to allow the car onto the premises.
Yeah.
Eagle-eyed viewers might notice that the actor playing one of the guards is the same guy who plays Mailer.
Right.
Oh, of course.
A few scenes later, glaring continuity.
Right, yes.
I think it's chilling that they've got this looming threat outside and they're too idiotic or egotistical to understand how much they put themselves in danger.
Yeah.
They think they're hard as nails and it becomes their undoing.
Yeah.
And there's something clockwork orangey about these guys. They're like Alex and his droogs, anarchic, anti-establishment, a bunch of brutes, no value for human life, arseholes, really.
Dickheads.
Well, all those army guys, they were put together in a side house on set, and Boyle did that because he thought it'll create camaraderie between them and also give them a touch of cabin fever by keeping them cooped up in one place.
Yeah, I mean, that comes across in that dinner scene afterwards.
Yeah.
You can tell that there's just something very wrong with this group of idiots.
Yeah.
And my overwhelming feeling is that Jim, Selena, and Hannah just need to get out of this situation.
They're in so much trouble.
Yeah,
And
it's awful.
But you don't know what yet.
Yeah.
No, you don't know what, but you know they're just off. I'd prefer to take my chances with the infected than these pricks.
Absolutely.
The one person who appears to be the voice of reason is laughed at and ridiculed, so we're completely overpowered in this situation.
Yeah.
I don't even know if these guys are even soldiers.
That's
Possibly
a good point,
not.
yeah.
Yeah, really
Just found the
possibly not.
uniforms.
Yeah, exactly. I think Major West is.
Yeah.
But I think he just gathered together a group of lads from the street and put them in uniform.
On a stag do.
On a stag
It
do.
is,
Give them some guns. Yeah.
They're awful, but really effective for what the film sets
Oh,
out to achieve.
definitely, yeah.
Really effective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Eccleston's really funny. His reaction when he eats the off omelette.
Yeah.
Get rid of it.
Yeah. Just spits it out.
Very good. Matt, what about you in this sequence?
Yeah, it's like you say, there's something very obviously not right here. Even though they've promised that, there's a cure, mail is the cure. That's not much for a cure. That's not going to stop the infection.
Jesus.
If you think that's the best thing they've got going for them, then you're right. They need to get out of there. And then you get the scene when the infected have tried to rush over towards the mansion and they've been blown up on the minefield. And Selena, whose instinct is always spot on, when she says, let's get out of here, follow Selena. She knows what's up.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she stood there with a machete out, ready for action, and the soldiers think it's all just a big joke.
Oh.
And the comments start to go over the line, and the behaviour goes over the line. Like I say, there's one decent guy, Sergeant Farrell, but he's just shouted down, and you get the standoff happening. What is going on here? I don't know what's wrong with these guys, but something's going to happen. And then Major West, who, like you, I trust Eccleston as an actor almost implicitly. He's a good guy. He's always a good guy. And you get that line, and it's so throwaway. He just goes to one of the soldiers, slow down. And it's so quiet in the mix. And I remember at the time thinking, did I quite hear that? Did he say slow down? What's that about? Why is that significant?
Yeah.
It's one of my favourite lines of the film because it's just so innocuous as a phrase.
So loaded.
So loaded.
So Robert Carlyle actually turned down the role of Major West that Christopher Eccleston eventually played. Eccleston worked with Boyle on Shallow Grave, which is his first feature. And Carlyle, as we know, was in 28 Weeks Later. He's in the sequel.
Yeah,
Yes,
I know. It's a nice full circle.
Yeah.
And then, because then you get that scene with Jim where he just takes him in for a drink and he just reveals what's going on. He found Jones with a gun in his mouth, so I promised them women because women mean the future. And it's like Westy says, it's a very old horror trope that in these scenarios, mankind or humanity is actually worse than the threat itself. But I think it's just done so well here. And it's the very definition of out of the frying pan and into the fire. And it does also cast that early scene when they pick them up. And one of them radios in, 1 male, 2 females. It's obviously something a soldier would probably say, but it gives that a little bit of a dual meaning. And so hard to believe, but the film has got even darker now. Like, they're just in so much trouble now.
Yeah, and it's the fact that they've got guns and they have more numbers, and you can't fight against that. And they know that, and I think the way they use it is in a funny way, and they start belittling people because of it. I think it's a disgusting way to do it, but
it is
horribly believable, unfortunately.
Yeah, it is.
Effective.
It is very effective. Westy, what about you in this sequence?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still invested in the film up to this point. Absolutely. It's interesting. It's getting there. Right, okay, this is where we're going. So Jim's led out with Farrell into the woods. Always have to go into the woods to shoot people. Can't just do it anywhere else.
Do it on site.
Yeah, just out the back. throw them to mailer or something. You know?
Mail or something.
Then keep them all chained and see how long it takes all of them to starve to death, or something just a bit more clever. No, we'll walk them out to the woods, right, here we'll go. And this is where it just starts to feel like it's just paint by numbers and a little bit cliched at this point. Arguing soldiers, well, you're gonna stab us, is that what you're gonna do? And you know, I've heard that a million times, and Jim's there, and it's like Mitchell's an absolute dickhead. And it's just very convenient. The soldier he drops his arse and then just shoots him. And he's like, what are you trying to do? Shoot me? And he's pinning him down. Then Jim gets away. Right, okay. And then this is the point that you said, look, like, are they soldiers? Because they're just shooting aimlessly into nothing.
Yeah.
They're not trained. They're not calm. They're not following any rules. They're just like, that'll do. And just shooting. And then it's just that horrible line that he does. He's over the wall, no vehicle, and no shooter. He's dead. It's like, all right.
Guy Ritchie.
It's like a no shooter. You know, are they really soldiers? Are they not? And that really kind of turns the screw a little bit, and it does become a little bit cliched from this point. It's where it kind of starts slipping for me, this point, and you just go, right, okay, Jim's got away. This all seems very convenient, and the threat almost disappears. And I think that's not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And it's kind of, by the numbers, although I like the final sequence. It is, it's obvious what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So with Jim free, prowls the perimeter of the compound looking for the best way to attack. And we're entering our final sequence. Westy, you're going to take it away.
I'll take it away as Jim Rambo comes on the scene. First blood. Needs that knife that you're going to take with you, Luke, obviously.
Yeah.
He's just loose on everybody. And there's a guy hiding in the cupboard. And you go, right, okay. But it just doesn't make much sense. Like, Jim's outside watching all this happen. He knows Selena and Hannah are still in there, but he's just let them all get infected and they're all running around. And it's just that you haven't got control over that at all. That's literally the worst thing that could happen.
Yeah. How can he guarantee that Selena and Hannah won't be attacked?
He can't guarantee their safety at all.
No.
He doesn't know what's happened, doesn't know where they are.
No.
He doesn't know how to get in, what he's going to do. He's got his clothes off for like 80% of the film. He's topless, again, in the rain, freezing, right? He's not superhuman at this point, but he's painted up as superhuman. And I know I said when we're talking about Cillian Murphy, it is believable. I mean, I get it. I can see his rage in this and how angry he is, and obviously how that compares to the infected. Now he is pretty much uninfected anyway.
Yes.
And all it's missing at this point is him coming face to face with Mailer or coming face to face with an infected and them just letting them go because they're like, oh, he's the same as we are.
He's one of us.
Yeah. That's all it's missing at this point in that level of cliche. But it's just a bit silly. I love that kitchen attack. I think that's really, really brilliant.
That image with Mailer outside of the window.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Yeah, it's all really, really good in coming together. But I just think once this plays out, it's just too easy. It's just too safe. It just goes places where it's just very, very convenient from this point. He knows where all these like secret doors and shit are, and he's kind of just disappearing into different parts of this mansion as if he's lived there, and it's just, you've got to suspend belief a little bit.
I think it's a little confusing to keep track of what's actually happening.
Yeah, you've got to just go, all right, this is the end of the film. Let's just listen to this music then.
I do like that bit though when Mitchell gets back to the house and like stops Selena leaving. He's like, oh, what's going on? And then you just get that shot in the background of Jones running, screaming, like shrieking like little girl, and the infected just follows past him. I do find that quite funny. I think that's a good shot.
Yeah. I like the moment where Hannah hides behind the mirror.
Oh, love that.
Away from the zombie.
Yeah.
That's probably her best moment.
I think so.
Very resourceful.
Yeah, it's
really, really good.
I like that.
And I like the shots of Jim prowling around the grounds and moving like a panther. He takes on, like you were saying, Westy, the characteristics of the infected, understanding maybe that this is the only way to survive in this nightmarish situation.
Yeah.
And there's some sick satisfaction in this soldier dying in this most horrific way possible. Thumbs into the eyes.
Yeah.
A classic zombie death.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of catharsis here because of the behavior of these guys. I mean, all three of us are just being completely angered by their behavior.
Yeah.
What I don't care for is that Selena doesn't really follow through on her film-long promise here.
Yeah.
She's battle-hardened, she's tough, she's no mercy, she's striking at will. She just ends up a gibber and wreck, and it's Jim who saves the day.
Yeah.
It's not Harris's fault or Murphy's fault. I just don't think the writing's particularly strong here.
No.
It doesn't follow through.
Yeah.
There's a real opportunity. There's a wonderful blueprint here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's all just went, we'll go the safe route, which the film hasn't done up until this point.
Yeah, I agree. So, Matt, you're going to bring it home?
I'm going to bring it home, and I suspect, I'm going to try to bring it home better than the film brings the ending home. Like, we do have to talk about it. So
Yeah.
Jim gets shot by West. He's in the back of the taxi, but he gets grabbed by the infected. So he's pulled out. Selena puts Jim in the taxi. Hannah floors it. You get this freeze frame, and then it's bam, 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 bam. I mean, rapid fire edits, to say the least. Selena saved Jim's life somehow. Like, I'm not denying she has a good deal of medical knowledge. She's a chemist. We've seen that, but she's not a surgeon. And now they're sheltering in a cottage, and the infected are starving out, which I do like because that does tie back to what Major West suspected. We'll starve them out, so that works. That's fine. And leaving, big messages on the hill to be picked up by passing planes. Again, I think that's plausible in that situation. If, they're going to send planes over, look, survives, that's fine. But that's a hell of a lot in a short amount of time. And you can't argue that it isn't anything other than just incredibly messy. And it doesn't make a lot of sense. And this is where it has to be pointed out that they literally ran out of money on this film.
Yeah.
Because they were shooting it sequentially. They'd got to that freeze frame, and that was it. The last penny was gone. They were so skint, when Hannah was like revving up the taxi to barge through the gate, and you get that shot in the chain.
Yeah.
Well, the stunt driver in the taxi said, you can't use a real chain that's going to cut through the car and injure us. So they had to make something else, but they were that skint. You know what that chain is made out of?
No.
Haribo sweets.
Brilliant.
David Bryan, he was the art director, and at this point they're just getting mates to chip in and help in the cancer. He said his friend on set, who he described as a pirate, he said, I can sort that. And he literally molded together Haribo sweets, covered them in a copper spray, and that's that for that one shot. It's Haribo sweets. And David Bryan,
that's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
Brilliant.
David Bryan has said the padlock, I'm not sure it's either foam or fudge.
Jeez. You know what?
Yeah,
it works
it
on
works.
It
screen.
does work for that brief
exactly.
shot. It works fine. Yeah, they're literally out of money, so they had to convince the studio. They had to show them what they'd done, said, we need some funds to get some kind of ending. And that's why it's so slapdash, because they did the first ending, which is quite different. They do get out of there. They get to the hospital, but Jim dies on the operating table.
Yeah.
So Selena and Hannah leave the hospital. Selena says, we just have to keep moving. And then they end up at the cottage. But that tested like an absolute bomb. Everyone hated it.
Yeah.
So they've had to cobble something together of what they've got, which is why it doesn't make sense that Selena saved Jim's life. In the original ending, it does make sense, that footage, because she doesn't save his life. She's trying her best to do something, but it doesn't work. But in here, it just doesn't work at all. So it is unfortunately just a case of they ran out of money and they just had to cobble together what they could to try to make some kind of ending work.
Just tacked on. I think they were just terrified because of those test audience results from that original ending, which, I mean, it just went down like a fart in a spacesuit.
Yeah.
They hated it.
Absolutely dire situation they're in.
So they had that original scene that you mentioned, Matt, in the hospital with Jim dying, and two others were shot, and they're pretty much identical, save for Jim. The one is the one that we see in the film, and the other one is the one that we see in the film, but Jim doesn't make it.
Yeah.
In the American release of the film, this ending, the original ending that ends in the hospital with Jim dying, was left in as a post-credit sequence with the opening title reading, "What If?" before the scene played.
Right.
Now, that just sounds like Clue to me.
It does sound like Clue. Pick your favourite ending.
Yeah,
Does Jim live or die?
that doesn't make sense. And then, like, the tone of the film completely obliterated with that. Well, if this didn't happen, then this could happen.
That's such a weird decision, that, isn't it?
It really, really, really strange choice.
Finally, there was a drastically different scene written and storyboarded that changes the entire course of the third act. Once Frank, listen to this. Once Frank gets infected, he's tied up and he's taken to the hospital. They meet someone who informs them that they can perform a complete blood transfusion to save Frank. Jim volunteers, sacrificing his own life so Frank can be reunited with his daughter, Hannah. Boyle has since pointed out that within the laws of the 28 days later world, which there doesn't seem to be many in the third act, this wouldn't be possible without bleaching all veins and arteries before performing the transfusion. So there must be one molecule of infected in there. They couldn't take all of his blood out and then replace it with all the Jim's blood.
And how quickly?
Exactly.
It changed within 10 seconds.
Yeah, ludicrous idea.
With this final scene that we get in the film, they managed to get funding after they showed the film to the studio.
Yeah.
And they cobbled this together, tacked on at the end, and they thought about getting a jet in there to see the hello sign, and a CGI jet would have cost around £70,000, which was much more than they had.
Right.
Boyle made a lot of phone calls and managed to get a real jet from Nice over.
Right.
And it was this scene was shot in the Lake District, and they did around 5 takes, and each time the jet getting lower and lower to the water before pulling up to avoid hitting the cliff.
Right.
And on the last attempt, the jet got so low that water was sucked up in the slipstream of the plane, and as it pulled up, it hit a tree, and the tree came crashing down, branches came tumbling down, just missing the crew.
Wow.
So unsafe. A jet
Didn't one of the branches hit Danny Boyle on the head?
Well, he must have to decide that this was the right choice for the ending. Yeah, I think we're all in agreement. Just a weird way to end. Tacked on.
Yeah.
So we've reached the end with hope, and Jim, Selena, and Hannah a functioning, dysfunctional family.
Mm-hmm.
Reception and awards.
As mentioned, early test screenings didn't go fantastically. Talking about one of them, Boyle said it was a disaster. They just walked out. They kept on going to the toilet. They kept talking. I remember thinking, fucking hell, it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
But he was encouraged by an encounter he had with film critic Mark Kermode.
Right.
Or at least that's who Boyle thinks it was. His memory doesn't serve him right. He said it may have been another critic, one of those guys. But for argument's sake, let's say it's Kermode.
Yeah.
Okay, makes sense.
Boyle said he was walking through Soho and Kermode came running out of a Pizza Hut and said to him, I've just seen your film. It's fucking great.
Oh, well, there you go.
So he took a lot of heart from that.
Yeah. He meant the beach, obviously.
But he was right. On an $8 million budget, 28 days later, returned a big $84.6 million worldwide.
Yep.
Over half of that came from US audiences who loved it.
Yeah.
And it was released in the States 8 months after the UK release.
Right.
But it was hugely popular.
Yeah.
Stephen King was a huge fan.
Yeah.
On opening night, he bought around 800 tickets.
Just doesn't want anyone sitting next to him, does he?
Yeah. He loves getting involved in low-budget horror films and saying how great they are.
Yeah.
Stephen King, he loves it.
He does, yeah.
Popular with audiences and with critics, Empire Magazine gave it a very positive 4 out of 5 review, saying the best purely British horror science fiction film in decades and the first great apocalypse movie of the new millennium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Roger Ebert, what do you think? He scored the film out of 4 chaps.
3.
Ooh, 2.
Westy, you're on the money. He said 28 Days Later is a tough, smart, ingenious movie that leads its characters into situations where everything depends on their and our understanding of human nature.
Yeah.
But the AV Club said, Later does a lot of things right, which makes its third act missteps even more frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think we would agree with that.
Yeah.
28 Days Later didn't pick up any major awards, of course, but it did win a smattering of low-key awards, including the Saturn Award for Best Horror Film and the Empire Best British Film Award.
Yeah.
Not too bad.
No.
And now it has 87% on Rotten Tomatoes and an IMDb score of 7.5 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
So a solid performance on all fronts for 28 Days Later. Opinions that are pretty much still held to this day.
Yeah.
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 Sequels and influence.
The success of 28 Days Later created a boom in the zombie subgenre, which had long laid dormant. Shaun of the Dead came a few years later. I Am Legend followed, as did the Dawn of the Dead remake, Zombieland, World War Z, and the hugely successful The Walking Dead was a small screen sensation.
Yep.
Still going strong as well. Various offshoots.
Yeah,
Various
spin-off.
offshoots, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And all of those owe a huge debt of gratitude to 28 Days Later.
Yeah.
I think it has been lost a bit. This film, hugely influential. I think the landscape would look very differently without it.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, of course.
Success on that scale brings with it an inevitable sequel. 28 weeks later was released in 2007. Danny Boyle was exec producer on the film and personally handpicked Juan Carlos Fresnadillo to direct, having loved his 2001 thriller Intacto.
Yes, that was a good film.
Alex Garland also helped with rewrite, so there is a continuity in the filmmaking process. But how does it hold up, Westy? Your thoughts on 28 weeks later?
I mean, it's grim as arseholes, isn't it? Let's be
It is bleak.
It is really, really bleak. And I think what they do in 28 weeks later is they take that idea of anyone is now fair game to die. And what they do is they cast people in that role where you think, oh, that person's definitely not going to.
Yeah,
you know, Jeremy Renner's in there.
Yeah.
You've got Carlisle's in there.
Yeah.
Rose Byrne.
Rose Byrne's in there.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to be fine. Yeah, because we recognize these people.
Yes.
And it just uses that as a real sucker punch.
Yeah.
And I'll still stand by the opening of this film is one of the best openings of any film I've ever seen. It's absolutely fucking terrifying.
It's incredible.
It's very, very similar to Snyder's remake of Dawn of the Dead. It's got that kind of vibe where it's just, Jesus Christ, it's kicking off. And you get, Carlisle's character across straight away. What an arsehole.
Yeah.
Oh,
Horrible. But the way that's painted as well, it sets the whole film up. If you don't
That's really well written.
Yeah, if you don't like the opening of this, don't watch the rest of it.
No.
Like, it's not as good as 28 Days Later for an opening that really sets the tone, but it's this tone that it does set is a completely different take.
Yeah,
but,
it is.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoy it. I think it's a great film, really ballsy, and yeah, I think it kind of advances on the first one.
Yeah, I very much like it. It does what all great sequels do for me. It expands on the idea of the original without losing sight of the concept, while also not making a carbon copy.
Yeah.
I think the cast are great. I think Imogen Poots and Robert Carlyle are standouts.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't crazy about the emphasis on Carlyle's character after he becomes infected, that he manages to evade all the attacks and makes it to the end to attack his children.
Yeah.
Not blown away by the writing there, but as horror movie sequels go, I think it is one of the best around.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I like it a lot. I think we did a Patreon episode a few months ago, didn't we? And asked the question, what are underrated sequels? And I think both me and Westy had this on our list of those.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, essentially it's the same thing, isn't it? But on a slightly bigger scale, different characters. But it keeps that edge, it keeps that ferocity.
Oh, yeah.
That farmhouse scene in the beginning, oh my God, abandoning his wife like that. Jesus Christ, that's an opening. And one thing it does have over this one, it keeps that going right to the end. 28 days later, somewhat of a happy ending, which is a bit, this one, unbelievably bleak. Basically says, nah, we're all fucked. Sorry, no one's getting out of this.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. There's Paris. Oh,
yeah,
there's
Paris.
Lovely.
Yeah, okay.
Nice. Cheers.
about you?
Jeremy Renner pushing that car.
Before he gets
God,
flamed.
What a hero.
Yeah.
As mentioned in the years since, there have been a comic book series and a graphic novel bridging the gap between 28 Days and Weeks. In recent months, talk of a third film in the 28 Days world has intensified. In the past, Cillian Murphy suggested that he'd be interested to reprise the role of Jim, but also said that he'd be too old for a 28 months later story.
Yeah.
Alex Garland has actually written a script for a third part, and Boyle loves it, and said in an interview that he'd be interested in directing if Garland didn't want to take the reins himself.
Right.
Imogen Poots has expressed a desire to reprise her role from the sequel as well, so there is hope for maybe a 28 years later, sometime in the future.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I know Cillian Murphy said he was up for it as well.
Yeah. Let's get it done.
Yeah.
What are we waiting for?
Get it done.
We've got some pull.
Will somehow be even bleaker. Don't know how.
And if it lives up to the previous two installments, the 28 Days universe could establish itself as a bona fide horror movie trilogy classic.
Really could.
Yeah.
All the right movies ranking.
We've finally reached the end. We can hear the jet rumbling towards us.
Yeah.
Before we get picked up, it's now time to summarise our thoughts and give the film a score out of 10. Westy, over to you.
Okay. It's been a difficult one for me to rank this because it's such an influential film. It's such an important film because of the way it was made and the budget that it made and the money that it made back. And a lot of people really adore this. And I really adore it. I really love it. I loved the film when I first saw it and I love watching it again. But it does peter off for me at the end. And I think that's more because I love the spectacle of it. I love what it achieved. I loved watching it again going, yeah, this can never happen again. And it's almost like a novelty thing for me than it is like a film where I go, this movie from start to finish is brilliant and I love it. It's not like Apocalypse Now where I look at that and go, whoa, that's a film that starts like The Shining, you know what I mean? Yeah. Godfather. You're just like, look, this has got some incredible work in it. And
it has.
Two incredible acts and one that unfortunately peters into cliche and predictability, so that's got to lose points for me. It's got, if it was just the first hour of this film, it's a 10 all day, no problem, but the last, say, 53 minutes bring it down a couple of notches for me. I do love it. I'm not saying that it's a bad film at all. I will watch it till the cows come home. I do really enjoy it, but that first hour is immaculate. It gets let down after that, so my final ranking for this is going to be an 8.5.
Still a decent score.
Yep.
What about you, Matt?
Well, when I put this one up, it wasn't because it's an all-time favourite of mine. I've always had issues with it, even first viewing. I thought one of the major casting choices doesn't work that well. Garland's writing isn't great, it's quite thin. And the ending, like I say, even on first viewing, I thought, well, that's a big old stuck together with super glue mess. I don't know what the hell happened there.
Yeah, bit of a cop-out, really.
It is a cop-out, but it's one of those films that everything else about it is so good, I can happily overlook the flaws. Murphy, Harris, Gleason, Eccleston, all very good. I love the soundtrack, and it's just packed full of memorable, iconic moments. The abandoned London, Jim fighting his parents. I do love that kind of final descent into madness in the house where it's just all kicking off. The concept is so brilliantly executed in those first 2/3. And Boyle gives the whole film a real ferocity. And the sad thing is, it could have been an absolute masterpiece with a bit more time, a bit more money, a bit more focus for Megan Burns, I think, to help support her in her role, a bit more thought in the writing, but it's not quite there. But then having said that, it's just the type of horror we don't traditionally produce or do well in this country. And like I said, it's Boyle doing what he does so well, which is producing something that has the intensity and the sweep of a Hollywood film, but without sanding off the edges to make it acceptable. And you just can't deny how influential it's been. So it definitely does lose marks for its flaws, but it does get an extra mark for me because of how influential it's been. So that takes it up to a 9.
9.
Right, yeah.
9, a very good score. For me, it's been a very nice surprise revisiting this film. I hadn't seen it in a while, and it's really brought home to me how important a film it is. I mean, it's not saving lives or anything like that, but in the confines of the genre and pop culture, it's a massive film.
Yeah.
Running zombies are always a good thing for me. 2 really good lead performances, decent writing, and I really think outstanding work from Danny Boyle.
Yeah.
But on the negative side, I've mentioned my issues with Megan Burns as Hannah. And I definitely prefer a different third act. The shift just doesn't work out for me. So that is bringing the film score down to an 8.5 from me also.
Oh,
fair one.
Our fourth and final score for 28 Days Later comes from our wonderful Twitter followers.
Yes.
They've been scoring the film out of 10 in their hordes, but I'll hold back on that for the time being and hit you with some choice comments.
Okay.
Scott Purdue, at Scott Purdue, was playing funny buggers by putting up a poster of the Sandra Bullock star of 28 Days.
Oh, the
And
prequel.
said 7 out of 10. Better than the original, but not great.
very good, Scott. Very good.
Gag.
Yeah.
Very nice.
None of us thought to get that in. Well done.
Nope.
Blue tick-bellied sneech at Licorice Bomb said, I went to the premiere, which was held in Queen's Film Theatre, Belfast.
Oh, very nice.
The director and stars were in attendance, and as well as a Q&A, they mingled with the audience after the show.
Nice.
I went in not knowing anything about the film and was blown away by it.
Lovely.
Great.
Nice story.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And how about this from Gary Deer at DK3009? Gary said, I vividly remember taking a girl on a date to see this, thinking it was a rom-com.
Oops. Zomcom.
Bad move. He said, the opening 30 minutes or so terrified me so much that I had to look at the floor to avoid screaming. And then how about this? Then I had to drop her off in the middle of the woods. It traumatized me for days.
He did what?
Did she live in the woods or did he just drop her off?
No, was he just too scared? Wanted to get home?
Is she not traumatized?
Jesus Christ.
Yes, so a very evocative story, Gary. Thank you very much.
Wow. I hope she's all right.
Have you checked on her?
Yeah.
You know, she's out there. She's over the fence. She's got no shooter. She's dead. No vehicle. He's fucked off.
No shooter.
No shooter. She's over the wall.
So very positive, but a very unfavourable review comes from Astral Zombie at Astral Zombie 87,
Wow.
Okay.
who said, cardboard cutout characters, manufactured emotions, obtuse plotline, unengaging monsters with no depth or angle, highly improbable ending where a skinny dude kills an entire military garrison, overly hammy soundtrack, use of thunder and lightning to up the drama. I rate it 0 out of 10. Judge Astral Zombie on that information, if you will, everyone.
Don't think that's how obtuse is used in a sentence.
Yeah, I'm just getting to the age now where I just don't even argue. That's absolutely fine. That's
Yeah.
your opinion.
So out of 10, fellas, what do you think 28 Days Later average out of 10 on Twitter?
8.
I'd agree with that. It does have its detractors, so yeah, I'd go along with 8.
Ooh, well, you are slightly off the pace on that one.
Ooh.
It got a very solid 8.5 out of 10.
Oh, right.
Right.
Okay.
Which means that overall 28 Days Later has a score of 34.5 out of 40. Not too bad considering the negative comments.
No, I think that's probably fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. You can see where 28 Days Later ranks against every single film that we've talked about on our show. Go to alltherightmovies.com/leaderboard. Join us again on All the Right Movies in 2 weeks. John, Matt, and Westy are getting ready for a surprise when they talk about Arnold and Total Recall.
Yeah.
A big surprise winner. Bound to be some fun to be had there, fellas.
Oh,
Yeah.
ridiculous.
I've not seen it in quite some time.
I don't believe it. Yeah, me and Matt, we're going to have to get our ass to Mars.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, that should be a good one. I mean, Arnold, you can't go wrong. Mars, you can't go wrong.
Definitely not.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Ironside, brilliant.
Ironside.
Yeah.
Our most recent Patreon exclusive podcast, Double Feature, is on 2 classic Mel Brooks comedies, Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein. That came out last week, and it was a joy to revisit those 2 classics for sure.
It really was.
It was,
Lots of laughs
definitely.
on that one.
Lots of fun.
Yeah, if you want to hear that episode, get yourselves over to Patreon, sign yourselves up, and it is a good laugh. And plus, I've got 5 kids to feed.
Emotional blackmail. Yeah, so if you do want to listen to it, you can sign up immediately, becoming director's chair to your Patreon supporter of All the Right Movies, and that and everything that we mentioned at the top of the show. Access to all of those podcasts. Have you seen what films that we cover in the score that they get? That's patreon.com/All the Right Movies.
Yes.
If you don't want to do that, but you do want access to the archive, you can buy our podcasts individually on our website, alltherightmovies.com.
Yep.
And don't forget that if you are an ATRM patron or you do subscribe to us on Twitter, you can be part of our exclusive Twitter movie community, a very nice bunch of guys and gals talking movies. How could you say no to that?
Yep, always good.
And for ATRM on a daily basis, we are all over social media. On Twitter, we are at ATRightMovies. A whole range of movie content on there, behind the scenes images, clips, interviews, our making of movie threads. Like our podcast, all of our thread info comes directly from cast and crew or is corroborated by at least 3 sources. So nothing but the best.
Nope.
Keep checking back regularly for more.
Yep, absolutely.
On Instagram and threads, we are at @all_right_movies. On TikTok, search @all_the_right_movies. Join our Facebook group and join the lively discussions there. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our videos. They go up every week and include the 4-strong ATRM team. Great stuff, so check it out if you haven't already.
Yes, please do, guys.
And if you like the podcast, we would love it if you could give us a rating on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. 5 stars is probably the best rating to give us, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think
I
so.
would
I mean,
imagine
it's
so.
the easiest one to do.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Just click one button.
You'll feel better for yourselves.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Just write great stuff or something,
Yeah. Love those guys.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And our website is alltherightmovies.com. Loads to keep you going until the next show there.
Yes.
Definitely.
And that is a wrap. We've made it out alive. We're off to raid the local supermarket in the hope of finding some irradiated apples. While we do that, get your ass to Mars and don't forget to come back for Total Recall in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'll be on that with the blade.
I'll have a pot noodle.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you,
guys.
everyone. Bye.